what's up, everyone? I'm a little early. Everyone always complains, Rob's late, Rob's late. It's not that I'm late, it's that I never like when I set up my studio, I just put, okay, go live now. And then I'm usually setting things up for 5 minutes. But not today. I scheduled it at noon and I'm here early. You know? Happy Pride Month, everyone. Yay! I feel prideful. I don't know about you all. What's the Normal America Show? Host Rob Noer. Call-in show today. You know what that means. I hope I don't know what it means, so hopefully someone can help me out. Oh, another great day. The sun's out. Digital Social Hours doing Jubilee style debates. Your friend Brian Shaprio was on their most recent episode. Yeah, I know. He messaged Jake Rattlesnake. Jake showed on the extravaganza the clip where he was like, I'm doing Jubilee style debates. Great. I guess I'm eating at a Gordon Ramsay styled restaurant as well when I go to Burger King tonight to get a sandwich, right? What a funny thing to say. Jubilee style debates. Good shit. Now I'm going to paste the link to call in. So that'll be pinned to Rumble and where am I at? There we go. So people want to call in. Deb Haaland was on the front page of Fox News. You know what I think's funny? I think I get this all the time. All the time I get, what do you watch, Fox News? I watch CNN and MSNBC and read Axios and the New York Times and the Washington Post, all far more than Fox News. I barely ever see anything from Fox at all. Like, I don't watch any television news programs at all. I only see clips here and there. But to the extent I do see clips, it's never Fox, like, or rarely Fox. So I don't know. I didn't see that. I have no idea what Deb Haaland's up to. Yeah, I know. Jubilee style debates. Sorry, I bumped the mic there. It's a funny thing to say, in my opinion. I'll just set up here. I'm very impressed with how my son did it, his t-ball practice yesterday. He's getting much better. But it's amazing to me how with kids, there's a literal view of things sometimes that you don't think of as like an adult. So my son, when he throws a ball, like, you know, you're supposed to like, I can't believe I'm going to attempt to show my audience here as a masculine dude. I'm going to show you how to throw a ball, right? Like baseball, if you're right-handed, you got your glove in the left hand, and you're sort of aiming your left shoulder at who you're throwing at, and then step and throw, right? Well, my son, when he throws a baseball, he's just facing you, and he's throwing it like this, almost like, you know, so you're not getting that step. So the way they're teaching the kids is they say, take your glove, stand sideways, and take your glove and point it at the person you're throwing to. Then take the ball and you make a T. Then you step and throw, right? That's the idea. But when they did the T thing, I don't know what it clicked in my son's head, because when he throws, it's fine. It's just he's not doing the step. That's the only part he needed to work on. In his mind, he did this. And his elbow's no longer allowed to bend. So he just goes. And the coach, I'm there trying to help, but the coach only has limited time with each kid. So I'm trying to explain to my son, like, forget about the T thing. Just throw the ball like you were. We'll work on the rest of it. But it's very funny. So now I have to. The plan is today to go out and work with my man and be like, look, you were throwing fine. You're throwing fine. We're just gonna work on the step thing. So, oh yes, Henry Novak. Of course, we'll talk about that. That was basically all of my show last night was talking about it. So we will obviously talk about it here some today. Um, One second. So, anyways, sorry. So yeah, that was. But my son, he's having a lot of fun, and at this age, 5 years old, that's all you want. Just the kids be having fun, and he seems to be having a lot of fun with it. He was bummed out at his last practice. Spider Man was there. They had a guy dressed as Spider Man. This time, no Spider Man, but that's okay. Um, but it was a lot of fun. Other than that, I have today's Tuesday, so I may be doing the extravaganza today. I'm not sure, and then just regular show tonight. Tomorrow night, 8:30, I'll be debating Pisco uh, on whether or not Ryan did bad in his debate with Pisco, which is hilarious. That's the topic, and also the court packing topic. So we'll be talking about that. But we're here today. So the call-in link's pinned. Oh yeah, robnoerr.shop. Consider getting your merchandise for sure. I'm not clicking any of that. It ain't me. Uh, Today, those call-in links are pinned, so you should be able to find it on uh, YouTube. I think they're now pinned at the bottom on YouTube and on Rumble, pinned at the top. Why it's different there, but we'll be able to take the calls, whatever you want.
Good to be back, Rob.
Hello, looking good with the glasses there, man.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, did you see the news on the bricks and minifig thing going on? Oh my gosh. Okay, so while we're waiting for people to file in, I got a news story for you that is crazy. So this YouTube guy named Ben Reckless, all right, he's got 17 point some million followers. He found this guy in Salem, Oregon, who this company called Bricks and Minifig, they did something called a bad faith agreement where they consigned $200,000 worth of Lego Star Wars to the shop, right? The largest Lego Star Wars collection in the world. And what happened is they removed the owner, put in new ownership, and they said, oh, well, we didn't sign that contract, so we don't have your stuff. And they basically made off like a bandit with $200,000 worth of Legos on this old guy. So they try to fight, and they said, well, we'll see you in court. Well, since it was a transfer, it was considered a bad faith agreement or whatever. It's civil. It's not criminal. So the route would have just been more than it was. So this guy named Ben Reckless comes in and does all this crazy stuff. Well, as he's legally going through the way, the cops do every hurdle to stop him, to the point where they even pull him over for meth in his car and raid his Airbnb. And it's crazy. And it goes on. The police respond with no evidence. And this guy's consistently coming out with all the police cam footage, but the police are releasing no evidence at all. And they're redacting things that aren't even supposed to be redacted. It's crazy.
Yeah, I did see this actually. I didn't know the guy's name, but yeah, like the allegation I saw was that like it's a Mormon community, and so like the local police, the business owner is like Mormon and in with the local community police, and so the community police are like harassing. I don't know. I saw the pushback that people were like, yeah, but this dude, this YouTuber that was looking into it is crossing the line into stalking, blah blah blah. I don't know if that's true. I haven't looked into it enough. But yeah, it's certainly crazy. Uh,
It's insane.
yeah,
That's a crazy story.
it's and like the idea, like a lot of civil stuff like that. It's overwhelming just how corrupt some of these things could be. Where I knew a person. It was nothing near this, but they had an old building, right, and it had a bunch of maybe antiques, maybe garbage in it, and so they brought some company in, and the idea was they were going to go through, pick out stuff that was possibly worth money, and then maybe get it insured, etc. And there were allegations. This guy swears up and down that they took like a bunch of stuff. I can't remember what it was, but it was like one of the things that this layman who owned the thing was like, "Oh, what about those antique dolls or whatever in the corner? Those look neat." And then they just weren't there. They just didn't
Yeah.
show up like after this audit, and it's like, "Well, where did those go?" And they're like, "We don't know what you're talking about. We didn't
Yeah,
see
it's
those."
crazy.
And it's like, "What's your recourse?" It's like, "Did you have pictures of it? Did you show? Oh, you don't have pictures? Yeah, they weren't there. Now
Yeah.
what?" And it's like, okay. And so I mean, this Lego thing sounds crazy because you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, where this guy, we're probably talking like $400 worth of stuff came up missing. But yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, I don't know enough of the details to know like
the
what they
the
did wrong.
videos are just crazy. It's probably like those things where they hook you and you're like this is like some Tiger King shit. This is like that Tiger King kind of like craziness going on. Like you don't know what the next episode's gonna be like. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's just getting crazier. So, but I'll let you take on your calls. It's good to be back. Sorry, I've been busy. Been
Oh no.
busy. Bunch of Rust events going on. So, but I'll sit in the back and let you move forward. See you guys and enjoy.
Thank you. Uh yeah, Batfrigger says it's not true. He was told he has to serve papers to the guy. He was following the law. Okay. Well, yeah. Pretty crazy. Yeah. Um of course, I think the big story that maybe a lot of people want to talk about, as was being mentioned there, is Henry Novak, who was a guy who 18, maybe 19 years old, who was murdered by a Sikh. This actually occurred in December. Um, this was in the United Kingdom. Sikhs are allowed to carry ceremonial blades. Now in America, it sounds weird because like we're just allowed to have knives. But in the United Kingdom, once they took away people's right to own firearms, now they're taking away your right to own or carry a knife. Now, I don't know quite how extensive that law is. I think it's pretty serious. Like, pretty much everyone I know around here carries a pocket knife because they're useful. Like, you use a pocket knife all the time for stuff. Uh, I don't think you're even allowed to do that in the United Kingdom, but neither here nor there. The Sikhs are allowed to carry these big ceremonial blades. However, the blade that this particular shitbag murdering Sikh used wasn't one of the ceremonial blades. It was just a murder knife. And long story short, they murdered this guy. The police showed up. They handcuffed the guy that was stabbed. You know, he can't breathe. He's saying he can't breathe, that he's been stabbed. Police, of course, decided that they were going to look at the guy that was the minority and accept his version of events and handcuff the guy that was obviously injured. Sikhs found guilty and looking at 20 years to life. Police come out and say, "We're sorry. Sorry. We're sorry. We were misled." Now the body cam footage is out. Now I can't show you the body cam footage on YouTube because I'll probably get banned for TOS because it shows a man dying. But the body cam footage is as bad as you could expect. It's something that everyone should watch, but it's difficult to watch. It really is. This is worse than George Floyd. George Floyd, still, I think we're going to see. To me, the whole George Floyd thing, by the way, while we're making comparisons, the determination as to whether or not Derek Chauvin should have been charged with murder was whether or not the hold that he was using was one that was trained by police. And it looks as if it was. Now, for whatever reason, they said that wasn't a justification. But if I'm trained to give CPR, for example, and I operate how that was trained and it kills someone, should I be charged? Anyways, forget about the whether or not Chauvin's guilty or not. Floyd was a criminal. He was resisting arrest. He had a bunch of fentanyl in his blood. And even if you think it was a terrible situation, which, by the way, it is a terrible situation, as shitty as George Floyd was, I didn't want him to die, right? But this situation is worse because Novak did nothing wrong, was not a criminal, was, unlike George Floyd, the victim of a crime. He wasn't ended as the result of a hold trying to detain someone. He was ended as a result of a malicious stabbing. He was clearly severely injured as the police came upon him, and they treated him like shit. And the reason, as we talked about yesterday, but maybe you would like to call in about this, is because we have trained society in the Western world to hate white people. That's what this is about. The police version, which, by the way, the police that put out this post that was like, we were misled. That's the problem. We were misled. They've since deleted that tweet. I guess X post now. We're not supposed to call them tweets. They've deleted it. They were misled in the same way that if the police would have showed up to Ted Bundy, a scene of a Ted Bundy crime, and he had blood all over his mouth and was holding a bloody knife as a corpse was at his feet, and Ted Bundy would have said, I didn't do this. It was some guy over there. And police said, thank you, sir, and ran away and let Ted Bundy. Yeah, I guess those police also were misled. Tends to be that murderers don't say, I'm the murderer. It's me. I did the bad thing. These cops deserve punishment. Don't get me wrong. And it's grotesque, but everybody should watch it to see what the West is now. But the real problem's not these individual cops, although they should be held accountable for their actions. The problem is everything in those cops' life, whether it be their professional life, whether it be culture around them, everything in the Western world is designed to bring us to this moment. Man lies obviously injured, stabbed in the legs, the face, I think the back or the stomach. Clearly in significant pain. Something horribly wrong with them, lying on the ground. Versus Sikh man, minority man. Hey, said something racist. Handcuff that injured man. Handcuff him. That's where we're at. That's where we're at in society. Whites are inferior culturally and legally. Now, this has always been the case with men. If police in the West show up to a dispute and there's a man and a woman, the police, and they're both saying, they hit me, the other one hit me. The police are going to first assume, in most cases, the man's at fault. That's where we're at with white people now. There are magic words that you could say now as a minority that excuse your violent behavior and put you in a different category when it comes to he was racist. We talk about this all the time. It's everything. It's not just legally, it's culturally. The examples are too numerous to count at this point. In our athletic world, in our culture world. Like, let me just give you two quick stories. Myles Garrett got traded. Myles Garrett was Cleveland Browns' best player, defensive player of the year, several years. He got traded to, I forget which team, but it looks like they did a trade, right? Now, I remember watching the Pittsburgh Steelers play the Browns a few years back, and the Steelers' quarterback was a guy by the name of Mason Rudolph. And there's a play towards the end of the game. The game's basically over, so it's garbage time. And during the play, Myles Garrett takes Mason Rudolph's helmet off after the play, and then so the player doesn't have helmet on. He's a white guy, by the way, the quarterback, Mason Rudolph. Myles Garrett, a black man, takes that helmet and swings it at his head. Now, had it connected, one of the strongest men in the NFL, swinging a football helmet at a helmetless man's head, it had the chance to cause significant damage, possibly even killing him. Any guesses as to what Myles Garrett said his motivation for doing such was? I'll give you a clue. After he said it, half the country was like, oh, well, that makes sense that he would attempt to kill the man. And want to take a guess? What could it be? What would make half the country go, oh, yeah, okay, it's okay to murder him? Did he assault his children somehow? No, that's right. He said that word. He said that N-word. Allegedly. Now, all the Steelers players, most of whom were black, were like, I didn't hear that. But it didn't matter. Then we had a case recently where a man was stabbed, I think in Oregon. Stabbed. Facts of the case not disputed. I believe it was a homeless man stabbed him. And after this man got stabbed, he let out a few expletives, including a racial slur. I'd probably do the same if I just got stabbed for no reason. What did a jury say? Not guilty. Not because the guy was called a racial slur and then stabbed, but because after the stabbing, the guy said a racial word. Even using a racial slur after someone attempts to murder you is post hoc justification. Well, you deserve to be stabbed then. Example after example. Don't even get me started. We talked about it last night in the Chud Logic shit. Carmelo Anthony trial going on right now. Of course, we're not allowed to see the footage of that. We're not allowed to see cameras in the courtroom. You know why. The entire Western world is based on a victimhood narrative. It was already bad. George Floyd kicked it into high gear. Can someone explain to me why in the United Kingdom so many politicians, including Keir Starmer, the current prime minister, took a knee over George Floyd? It was one of the biggest stories in the country that a cop killed a black man in another country. But it grinded. There were protests in the United Kingdom and other European countries over this. But when a British man is killed with their own police behaving in egregious ways, they had to pressure Keir Starmer to put out a statement, and his statement was like, knife crime's bad. Why didn't I see riots? This event occurred in December. Novak was killed. Here we are in June. Where were all the riots? Where was all the pressure? You know damn well what would have happened. In the United Kingdom, they would have said they were hate riots. Understand this. If you can see how bad things are now when it comes to this racial narrative, what do you think is going to happen when whites are minorities in their own country? What do you think that's going to look like? No one's going to give a shit. It's not going to be, oh, well, whites are the minority now. They get special minority treatment. It's going to be, fuck them. They deserved it. Now I saw them saying today, they're like, oh, some lefty shitbag UK politician came out and was like, one officer has had to be moved because he was falsely accused of being one of the officers involved. Well, there's an answer to that. Tell us who the fucking officers were. How about that? I remember when Maxine Waters, or Walter, whatever her name is, was outside Derek Chauvin's trial basically saying, we riot if he's not found guilty. That's how much we had to have. That was it. It was a given that Chauvin was guilty, and fuck it. There's no chance that dude was getting a fair trial. We know it. But that was it. That was the stakes. With these cops, we can't even know their fucking names. Nope. Justice. Psh. Sorry, they were just doing their jobs when it comes to dragging a stabbed white man. He says over and over, I've been stabbed, I can't breathe. I don't think so, mate, says the cop. Amazing. And as always, anytime that we see an event like this, the real victim is the minority groups. It's the Sikhs that are the real victim. Racist Sikh stabs and kills white man, police mock white man. Imagine that. Imagine laying there, bleeding out because some piece of shit, fucking racist Sikh stabbed you while his whole fucking family's helping cover it up. Finally, you see the police and you think maybe some hope. Nope. As you beg for them to help, telling them that you've been stabbed, you have to sit there and listen to them fucking chortle it up with the piece of shit that just stabbed you, who's accusing you of being a racist. And that's the last thing that goes through your mind as you die on the fucking street like a dog, as police are dragging you. That's what you have to look forward to with your interactions in the Western world now. But I'm not racist. Things were bad and then George Floyd happened. And now it accelerated everything into overdrive. Now it's just a foregone conclusion. White people evil, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I'll just show one. Again, I apologize I can't play the clip, but you could look it up easily on social media on a place like X. Here's Konstantin Kisin, who I like. He says, Britain had a moment of silence for George Floyd. Our politicians kneeled en masse to show their outrage at his killing. I can't breathe became his slogan. George Floyd died on the other side of the world. He wasn't British. Henry Novak was British, and his treatment by the police was shocking and negligent in the extreme. Criminal, I'd say. Yet there's no minute of silence. There's no coordinated public campaign. There's no kneeling at sporting events, and we know why. During the summer of BLM, some people said all lives matter. This was treated as the highest form of racism, and anyone who said this was immediately canceled. Why? Because the people in charge don't actually think that all lives matter in the same way. They've created a racial hierarchy of victimhood where a career criminal who died through mistreatment by police in a foreign country with zero evidence of racism like George Floyd is automatically sanctified because of the color of his skin. And Henry Novak, a British man, one of ours, is automatically dismissed and ignored because of the color of his. This is the ugly fruit of so-called anti-racism, an obsession with race that has created a two-tier system which treats people differently because of the color of their skin. All lives matter. That was racist. Of course all lives matter, they said. Where are they? Where are the George Floyd protesters, all those black activists? Where are they today? Remember, they told us that it's an assumption that all lives matter. But you're just saying that to deflect from the fact that police clearly don't think black lives matter. Okay, well, they clearly don't think white lives matter. But where's your evidence it was because race, blah, blah, blah? Well, unlike George Floyd, where we have zero to this day, not one scintilla of evidence that George Floyd's race had anything to do with what happened to him. We do know with Novak that the entire argument was he's racist. That's why he was handcuffed. The white man who stabbed must have had it coming. He's racist. Drag his ass across the gravel. I've been stabbed. I don't think so, mate. Now, it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. But make no mistake about it. If you question how bad things could get, understand this. All of this has to do with what I call cultural Marxism, which is the idea of separating us into oppressors versus oppressed. Marxism did it based on economics, wealth. You could do it based on race. You could do it based on biological sex. You could do it based on all sorts of factors. Political ideology. I've been talking a lot about the Democrats that are supporting Graham Plattner despite the fact he has this totem conf tattoo. The Democrats did everything they could to acclaim every single person was somehow connected to Nazis that they didn't like. Now when they have a guy running, they're like, well, here's our boy Bernie, everyone's favorite octogenarian socialist. Get him, Bern. What do you have to say? Well, when it comes to Charlottesville,
when you have a president commenting on a march by Nazis and white supremacists who then declares, well, there are nice people on both sides. Mr. President, there are no nice Nazis.
Excellent. A hoax, but hey, who gives a shit? If you're going to spread a hoax because you hate Nazis that bad, totally get it. Clearly, Bernie's against anyone remotely connected with that movement.
I'm not overly impressed by a squad of media running around saying, what do you think about the tattoo on Graham Plattner's chest? Between you and me, there might be one or two more important issues.
Really? Because the president that you supported, Joe Biden, said the reason he ran for office was Trump's comments in Charlottesville. I don't remember Bernie saying, hey, there's more important issues than that. Can I define cultural Marxism? Marxism seeks to look at people's economic and says there is the proletariat, the working man, and the bourgeoisie, the wealthy. The bourgeoisie are oppressors and the proletariat are oppressed. And therefore, we must always defend the oppressed. Cultural Marxism is now do that based on everything you can think of. Race. White people are oppressors. Blacks and every other color are oppressed. Religion. Christian are oppressors. Every other religion oppressed. Biological sex. Men are oppressors. Everyone else is oppressed. Heterosexuals are oppressors. Every other group is oppressed. Westerners are oppressors. Every other group is oppressed. And if you're oppressed, that means that the ends always justify the means. The standards don't apply to the oppressed people. They have the highest moral criteria that you could seek, which is victimhood. When you're a victim, you're justified in doing anything. So all you have to do, and you can do it in infinite ways. Thin people are oppressors, and fat guys like me are oppressed. So if someone accuses me of something, I could say, oh, because I'm fat. Oh, you're ableist. And they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. No, please don't. That. So that's Bernie. Bern, by the way, what do you have to say for yourself, Bernie? It's pretty bad.
Hello, it is me, Bernie Sanders. I am once again asking you to donate money to Normal America with robnoerr. The oligarchy must be defeated. The only millionaires and billionaires that are acceptable are me and Normal America with robnoerr. Once more, we ask you to donate money so that Robert, much like me, never has to work a real job. Help me in defeating the oligarchy. Donate to Normal America with robnoerr. And I will go buy a new pair of mittens in my third lake house, which is modest, and fly on my private plane, which I have to do. Donate Normal America.
Thank you, Bernie. Even though you're a piece of shit, I appreciate it. I promise I'll get to super chat. Sniper, incredibly generous. Thank you, man. But the last clip I'll play is, and then we'll take call-ins so we can talk about whatever you want, this topic or anything else. In their effort to do this, you can see what happened to Novak. You see the difference, even in the UK, of how all the establishment class treated Novak compared to how they treated George Floyd, which occurred in the United States. And if you think you're being hyperbolic, though, Rob, they're not really hunting white people. There's not really a different standard. They're not going to come after people. Here's ex-New York Times author Paul Krugman. Here's what he thinks needs to be done with the country. You ready?
We need to defang Trump as much as possible and make sure that neither he nor anybody who follows in his footsteps has power after the next two elections. But beyond that, we really need to do a thorough purging of the United States. We need a demogification, and that is, I'm not going over the top by using a word that's very similar to the denazification that we pursued successfully after World War II.
There you go. Nuremberg trials, baby. Yeah. Says a New York Times author. I know what I'm saying sounds a lot like denazification. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's where we're at. If you are labeled an oppressor, if you're in a group that you're an oppressor, all things are on the table to do with you. All of them. There is nothing off the table. We could do anything we want to an oppressor group. Period. You're an oppressor group, we'll stab you. Then we'll say you called us racist and the cops will drag you through the fucking dirt as you expire. We'll have grooming gangs that assault tens, if not hundreds of thousands of girls, white British girls. But the police will stand by and do nothing because that would be deemed racist. After all, white people have it coming. Look what they did. Haven't you read King Leopold's Ghost? Don't you know what evil white people did, evil British people did around the world? So, hey, if tens of hundreds of thousands of their young girls have to be assaulted in the most vicious ways, shit, I wasn't going to do it. That Novak thing, right? You saw that. Here's Rupert Lowe, who is a politician we all should wish we would have fighting for us. Here's him reading out statements. Now, I warn you, this is tough. This is tough. Of their grooming gang inquiry.
Another. Race did play a part and motivated the selection or demographic of the victims. Throughout my exploitation, the other girls I encountered, or who were abused alongside me, were almost exclusively white. Another. She had a baby by him, and his dad was an imam. His dad knew. And he got his son married and said that he wasn't allowed to see the child. They look after their own community. Another. Over the course of the abuse, I was raped by multiple police officers in different parts of the country. Another. He put a cigarette out on the baby's face. Another. It started when I was 13. I was raped by probably about 600 or 700 different men over 3 years. Another. They would toot the horn of the car, and then a child would be taken to the front door by a staff member of the children's home. Another. I was bleeding from both my vagina and my back passage and was so swollen I could not sit down. I told hospital staff my drink had been spiked and I did not know what had happened because I was too afraid to tell the truth. They did not ask any questions. They gave me tablets and discharged me. I was 15 years old. Another. Things would escalate around Eid and holidays. Parties got bigger, got worse, got more violent. More people involved, more girls involved. The parties were just bigger. Another. The main clash that I kind of had with the religion side of it was I grew up as a Christian. I would wear my cross because it was something really special to me. It was just used as a way to break me down. They said, "Where is your God now? Has your God forsaken you?" Another, it was all of the white girls in every home that I went to. I remember a man opening the back of a van and I saw 15, 20 girls locked in dog cages. Another, dogs were brought in and I couldn't move at all. I had nowhere to move. I think that was the scariest thing, was not having any concept of it. There were men around me, not horrified, not disgusted, not helping, but filming and laughing, making bets on whether the dog could actually rape me or not. And yes, I was raped by a dog. The man just held my face, stared me down straight in the eyes, and he wanted to see me break, and he did.
Where are all the lefties that are screaming about Epstein? Where we have thousands of girls, thousands, going on record, accusing police of being involved in the crimes and covering it up. Decades. We actually have arrests that have finally occurred decades later to show this isn't just all conspiratorial. Where are they? Where's the outrage? No one gives a shit. They're more outraged that someone like Tommy Robinson brings it up. The real victims are the Muslims, after all. We shouldn't look and ask, why is this occurring in these communities? After all, you know what's worse than cigarettes being put out in babies' faces? And 13-year-olds being assaulted by hundreds of men? And dogs? You know what's worse than that? Racism! That's worse! Shut up, little girl! Shut up! Who are you? Where are all the feminists? Isn't it odd? All of a sudden they're quiet. And of course, I can show you the exact mentality, maybe, in one of the all-time saddest yet funniest clips that you'll ever see. Maybe, if I can find it. Our equestrian enthusiast Vosh here, left-wing, moral arbiter, evil men, patriarchy bad. Let's see what he has to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because I'm over here.
Just, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna. Here, wait, hold on. I should probably move my webcam down because I'm like blocking their faces. I've been doing it the whole video. I just want to say, do you think it maybe speaks a little bit to the fact that we have a rape culture when we put 6 people in a room together to talk about Me Too, and the 4, when they're like, hey, who of you have experienced sexual assault, and the 4 women sit down and they've all been raped and they all can barely choke out a coherent sentence. Like, do we think this perhaps maybe slightly speaks to the fact that there's a problem? Like, Me Too has gone too far. False allegations are ruining people's lives. Okay, who among you have experienced sexual assault? And like every woman in the room starts crying. Like,
And say you will about Vaj, right? It's clear, at least he's trying to give the impression right here. This isn't someone saying, hey, I don't believe accusations. This is someone saying, this is a horrible problem. Horrible problem. All of these women, it's such a problem we have with this culture of just general men, that all these women have been assaulted. That's how bad it is. And he wants the audience to know he really cares about that.
almost every female friend I have has been the recipient of sexual assault or violence or rape or whatever.
I'm not surprised by that. That seems to be pretty prolific in left-wing communities. some of these men that claim to be the strongest feminists, it turns out the communities that they're in end up being very, very assault worthy to women.
At some point in their lives. Seriously. It's such a common thing. I think 1 in 4 is probably understating it significantly. I wouldn't be surprised if the rate for sexual assault on women over one's lifetime was as high as 1 in 3 or 1 in 2.
50% maybe of all women have been raped. Okay.
We just don't know because nobody fucking reports, because reports aren't taken seriously.
Reports aren't taken seriously. So no one reports it. Okay.
That's what Me Too is about.
You're like, I don't think things are on the same level, but things impact you in like bizarre ways. But yeah, like because the perpetrator wasn't white, and because he was like, I'm, you know, part of like a certain religion.
Wait, are we being real?
And the police were basically just like, we can't because of cultural differences, which I don't feel like is such a good.
What? Bullshit! Are you fucking kidding me? Did she turn her fucking rape confession onto how the rape refugees, fucking Ahmed Muhammad, raped her and the police were like, oh, we can't persecute brown people? Bullshit!
Now you can say people don't take him seriously. That's the mentality. Vosh just puts voice to what's unsaid. We don't believe the white women. We don't, and even if it happened, we don't care. These Muslims are victims. These refugees are victims. They've had a real bad life. And this mentality is ubiquitous throughout the legal systems in the West. How many times will you hear a judge say, Mr. Rapist there, you did grow up young and black, and it had to be traumatic. Had to be traumatic. So you yourself are a victim. That's it. He's a blowhard who has a bigger audience that's vocalizing it, and he ironically doesn't even see that he's everything that he's criticizing. In a 2-minute unedited clip, you see a minute and a half of all these women are assaulted, and no one takes them seriously, so they don't report it. And then a woman saying, I was assaulted by a Muslim and police didn't want to hear it. Oh, she must be lying. I don't take her serious. All within like 15 seconds, it takes him to switch like that. And that's the feminists that supposedly care about female abuse. So you can imagine what's going on in these police precincts and political circles, etc. Rest in peace, Mr. Novak. May we never forget his memory, just like Irina Zertusk, just like Charlie Kirk, and all the other people. They're the unfortunately foreseeable tragedies of the racist narrative that we've been allowed to precipitate throughout all the West. And the destruction that we've wrought upon ourselves by being too cowardly to stand up against it because we are afraid that someone would call us that R word. And that scared the shit out of us more than anything. I no longer give a shit if anyone ever calls me a racist. Fuck you. The word has been so overused that the only meaning of it is white guy I don't like. Fuck you. I do not care. It means nothing to me. All right, let's read some super chats, then we're going to take calls. Abby, thank you so much. $10 says, I've been slacking keeping up with the politics and news. It's all right. It's nice to take a break. It really is. So, Taylor TC, $5, thanks. I had a British roommate 15 years ago. I used a pocket knife to open the box once and they about had a heart attack. Brits see knives like machine guns. Yeah, it's insane. Abby, thanks so much for becoming a member again. Really appreciate it. Zach Gelpy, $10 says, question Bernie, are there any nice commies? Not commies, though. Fascist, right? That's who Bernie hates until they're on his side. Same with the oligarchs. Bernie didn't have a problem when more billionaires were giving money to the Democratic Party than the Republican. He didn't really speak up much about that when it was helping his side win. Of course, as soon as the election goes the opposite way, now it's the same with fascists. Well, if they're on our side, Sniper, unbelievable, gives 50 subs. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Really do, man. I hope you're having a great one. And then Abby, incredibly generous, gives 20 subs. Thank you so much. James, for $5, says, do you think they really believe in cultural Marxism, or is it just a way global communism with Western civilization being in the way? Bernie sent me. They can't articulate the concept of cultural Marxism, most of the ones that believe this. All they understand is we look at everything through the lens of victimhood. That group's oppressed, so that means the other group must be oppressing them. And that means they're bad and evil. And if you're bad and evil, the ends always justify the means. And if you're oppressed, that means you're good. And so even if you do something bad, well, it's understandable because you're a good person, because you're in a group that's good. They don't judge people based on individual action. Ironically, right, they're judging you by the color of your skin and not the content of your character. Heavy, thanks so much, $20, says, listening to people like you and Andrew is what brought me back to my faith. I was in a panic one night looking for morality for my kids because the world's so devoid of it. Been to Afghanistan, saw Baki Bazi in practice. Thank you so much for the kind words. It is. Look, I try to stay positive on my show. We talk about deep, heavy shit, but I also try to give a message, even if it's not overtly religious many times, that life is still wonderful, as bleak, as dark as things could be. To give in to that sort of despair isn't worth it, and it doesn't accomplish anything. I do recommend going to church, but even outside that perspective, if it's something you choose not to do, there's many great things in life. Oops, bumped the wrong button. All right. One more time, I'll remind you, if you look at the pinned post on YouTube and Rumble, you have the call-in number. We can talk about anything you want. You could agree, disagree with me. You could talk about the topics we were just talking about. You could talk about another political topic if you want, and or anything culturally relevant. The more callers we get, the less time I'll have with each individual caller. So please, if I move you along, it's not that I don't appreciate. Even the ones that call and yell at me, I appreciate. So we're going to start. Right now we have two callers on the line. We have Levi Tharp and Miggy. Oh, I always forget. I should do this so people can see what people's names are. Maybe I should do that. There we go. All right, we'll start with Levi. One last thing to all callers. Please keep it TOS friendly, even if you hate me. I am aware, and I've had to remove a lot of videos, and I had to stop doing this call-in show for a long time because a certain community has members that are trying to shut down my channel, and people would intentionally violate terms of service and then try to report me. So we're going to have a very quick trigger. If you accidentally slip up and say a slur or you say something that's akin to a call to violence, I'm going to boot you immediately because I cannot take risks on this. So, all right. First up, we got Levi Tharp. Levi, how you doing today?
Hello, robnoerr. It's a pleasure to speak with you finally, and to go back to the very beginning of your show. It is a very nice day in upstate New York.
I'm in PA, so I'm not that far away from you. You know,
yes,
4 hours or so, but yeah.
I'm originally from Indiana, actually, as well.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Indiana Hoosier here.
Okay.
Anyway, one thing I would like to say, you also said earlier into your show, your son's T-ball and the T-posturing. I almost feel like that is bad posturing for your son. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, it's more of a hip movement from shoulder to hip, and then your step just carries it out. But that's more of a pitcher movement than a fielder movement.
Yes,
each position has its difference. So I would kind of caution on the tee and maybe have him square up. I learned to throw the ball squared up, bringing my hips back, pointing my shoulders forward, and just staying into a frontward stance.
Yeah,
if that makes
I
sense.
agree. I think what happens is because it's very rudimentary and you're dealing with like 4 and 5 year olds, most kids just
Yeah.
come in and it's like, and they're trying to get them to a little like keep your glove facing the ball and like, so I get what they're doing, but it's sort of like math where when you're young they teach you things doing math that then
Yeah.
you then have to reteach later like, well actually that's the wrong way, we just taught you that because it was easier to understand. That's what I feel like. And so I get it. I think they're trying their best, but yeah, I'm working with them myself, so I'm
Yeah,
trying to
I
get them
think I think what you will probably do with him, it might confuse him onto the field because the coach says something different compared to you, but kind of be like, well, I'm showing you the better position. Anyway,
right.
that doesn't matter. He's too young to understand these kind of scenarios.
Yep.
To more important matters, I'd like to ask you an honest question.
Mm-hmm.
Our American birthday is coming up, right?
Yep.
Do you feel
my birthday as well? I'm born on July 4th. So.
Oh, well, congratulations and happy early birthday to you, in case I don't get to say it to you. Do you feel that American patriotism is dormant? I'm not saying gone, but do you feel it's more dormant and more docile than what it used to be? I remember back into the 90s when we'd have baseball fields filled on July 4th and backyard barbecues and more 4th of July stuff going off and parades and this, that. And now it's like, even if you light a firecracker off, people are trying to report you for a noise violation or this or that. Does it feel like that to you?
Yes, and like I think I could isolate the reason why. It used to be, if you go back and you look, regardless if you considered yourself more on the left or more on the right, the majority of people in this country were still patriotic and loved the country. Even if you go back to like the Vietnam War, like a lot of the people that were protesting when asked, they would say, "I love this country." That's changed, and what you see now is that a lot of leftists actually hate this country. And you see the fruits of this in things like the 1690 Project. And it's all about acknowledging how evil the foundation of this country is and how evil it continues to be. And that's personified by Donald Trump. He's a caricature of everything that they hate. If you go back to what I was talking about, cultural Marxism, he's white, he's rich, he's a man, right? All of this stuff, he's conservative. All of this stuff is stuff that, you know, he's like, if you were making a comic book villain for all the things the left hates, it would be Donald Trump. That's sort of, even though politically he sort of is like a 1990s left winger, Democrat, right? It doesn't matter because it's not his actual thoughts that matter. It's all of the groups that he belongs to. That's what matters. And so they hate this country when Trump's leading it. They're ashamed. And even when Biden's leading it, they're not like, and all the polling shows this, like even when it's a party that the right wingers don't like, they still say, we love this country. They're patriotic. So if you take two things, one is that you have one group that's now like, look, America's basically shameful. It's a shameful place, right? And what happens is those people have a lot of cultural oomph. A lot of our celebrities, a lot of the things that shape our culture, they're in that category. And so now if you're someone like people I know, and you go to an event and there's left-wingers there, are you showing up in your red, white, and blue? Talk about how proud of you. Probably not. You keep it to yourself, right? If you're a local town and you're doing a parade, maybe, we're just going to try to avoid the patriotic stuff. We actually have now, you can see it more in the United Kingdom, but we have it in the United States as well. If you fly like the English flag in the United Kingdom or the Union Jack, they'll consider it a hate flag. And it's in the United States, we've seen that. We've seen that when students want to show up to classes at points with the American flag in areas where there's like a heavy Hispanic presence, they're like, that's hateful. That flag's hateful. We see the flag being removed by lefties when they go into ICE facilities, the flag being burned. And so you have one group that's like, look, we despise the country and what it stands for. And the other side's like, we don't want to be vocal because we don't feel like getting into shit with it. And then on top of that, that other group, that the right wingers that traditionally would be patriotic, right? We end up seeing that they're getting disenfranchised. They see that patriotism's met. Where are the people on their side? Where are the Republicans, right, sticking up for them? And it's like, that's what I see.
If you look, do you remember? I don't remember what speech it was when he addressed the House and Senate. Donald Trump went his first question: if you support American citizen servicemen and so forth, the Republicans stood up. The Democrats did not. They sat there in like, oh my gosh, he got us, but we can't support this, Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And you mentioned something with Ryan Lawley last night. I can't hit the exact point, but you're like it was something about passing a something consecutively in like a for the Constitution. Do you kind of briefly remember what I'm speaking about?
Passing something executively for the Constitution?
Yes,
like the amendment. We were suggesting an amendment to keep the courts at 9. Yeah.
Now you mentioned something like or he mentioned something. I can't remember which person. Forgive me. That who would actually try to make themselves look bad? Well, clearly we've already seen the party that will try to make that look bad. Like you was raising an example, like who would actually stand against it? We already know. They've already shown their colors. They didn't stand up for American citizens. They didn't stand up for paralyzed girl that was in an incident. Trump already showed this to us, and so I really think that the patriotic side, which starts off drastically in the school system, and forgive me for bringing up the school system, but I do work for a school. I'm actually a janitor at night, for one here.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that where it's really beginning is in the schools. If you can see where I'm getting. Pledge of Allegiance, no longer there. The flags are still hanging into the classroom, but they're almost like, okay, what's that? Nobody represents it. The way our Pledge of Allegiance was developed by Francis Scott Key when the British bombed the heck out of the fort, and all the people in the fort surrounded the American flagpole so that flag would never fall. I mean, that isn't remembered. That isn't taught. That isn't brought about. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, it definitely, there is, even if you go back and you look at 9/11, I think if a 9/11 event attack occurred today, it would be shocking how different the response would be, not from our government, but from the people. Like when 9/11 occurred, it didn't matter your political identity. Everyone in that moment sort of came together in this country. I'm from rural Pennsylvania. I'm not a big fan of cities, right? New York City is attacked. Like New York City is almost a different country than where I live.
Yes.
Those people in New York, even in the 90s, would have treated me with contempt, like I was some redneck, And yet when that happened, it was like, no, you don't attack one of our own. And I remember, Sammy Sosa from the Cubs, I think he was Dominican of origin. I don't know, black man. There's this iconic where he takes an American flag and he runs the outfield, and it's like cheers up your spine or chills up your spine, where you're like, just how everyone was just like, fuck you, we're not going to take this. And that moment's gone. Like if it happened now, half the country would be like, well, we sort of had it coming. It's Trump. It's all Trump. His country deserves to be attacked. And it would be this weird thing, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better. Like the clip I showed with Paul Krugman, right? Like they're legitimately lathering themselves up to be like, We should literally excommunicate everyone who even voted for Donald Trump, which is quite literally slightly more than half of the voting population. We should excommunicate them. They should be allowed nowhere in public life. We should take them out of our family. We should make sure they have no access to any cultural or political influence ever again. That's roughly half the country that they're just coming out and saying it. Like, yep, that's what, pack the courts, add states, vote for the guy that says he's a Nazi, vote for the attorney general in Virginia that says he wants Republican children dead. We don't give a fuck. We don't care. We're good, they're evil. And the problem is they've set that dichotomy, and still most of us are not playing that game. Most of us are still in the like, well, look, we don't look at it that way. We look at it like these are people with terrible ideas, but we're going to like push to have our ideas politically and culturally when we can, and that'll be better for everyone. And they're like, no, we want you guys defeated. We want you destroyed. That's how they approach it, you know? And so when you factor that in, you know, the last thing I'll say about this, and then I'll give you the last word. I talk about this a lot. I used to watch these, like, ironically, it was in the United Kingdom and in Canada, like Question Time with the Prime Minister, where they would have these talk shows that like politicians or academics would come on, and they would like have, and over here in the States, we had like Maury Povich or Jerry Springer, and these were like intellectual. They'd be asking these like philosophical questions, and I had to watch 6 to 8 of these that were, what does it mean to be British? What does that mean? Right? And so they'd have all these people in, and there's no answer. And it's the same in the United States. What is it? What collectivizes us as a country? It's not race. We see that. No. In fact, we're told explicitly that it's not race. Diversity is our strength. Okay, it's not race. It's not religion. Not everyone's Christian, and we have different okay, so it's not Christian. So then what is it? There has to be something that brings us together collectively. What is it? Well, it was for years, it was the Constitution and the principles in. It's not that anymore. Like, that's irrelevant. Do you think all these Somalians that come in give a shit about the Second Amendment? They don't care at all about that. It seems that the best answer is, what is America? What's the answer that seems to be the most prolific when it comes to sort of our politics and our culture? An economic zone. That's it. There is nothing. And so then why do you give a shit about your neighbor? Why do you give a shit about the flag and the country and the symbolism? Why do you care at all about that if it's just like, everybody's interchangeable? Your neighbor today might as well be interchanged with an H-1B from India. Who gives a fuck? Same thing. After all that matters is GDP goes up. How do we make the most widgets? That's all that matters, right? The identity of the country, the culture, the people that were connected here, that had ancestors, that none of it matters. It does not matter. Everyone else's history matters. If you're a person of color, of course, your ancestry is very important. But if you're white, well, your forefathers are evil sacks of shit. And it's to be shamed, and you should grovel and apologize. And I for one, will say this. I don't consider myself any sort of white supremacist or anything like that, though I don't care if people call me that. I'm tired of pretending to be ashamed of my forefathers. Go fuck yourselves. The people that I'm descended from built the greatest countries that this world's ever seen. They fought against the impulses of baser people that encouraged things like slavery and the complete decimation and conquering of the people that you militaristically overcame. And by the way, my ancestors had the military might to overcome any of these countries and didn't. So fuck them. I no longer care that I'm supposed to sit around and be ashamed of that sort of shit. Fuck you. I'm proud of them. But the point is, you know, to go back to the original point, I don't know what we're supposed to celebrate together as a country anymore. I don't know. And I know there's a lot of discussion about the 250 celebration coming up here. And, you know, there were people saying this, like the whole thing was supposed to be Kamala won, and the 250 celebration was supposed to be, we're ashamed of slavery. We're ashamed of white people. That was supposed to be what the 250 was. And now when it's going to be, well, it's a celebration of the country, you can see the pushback. Oh, this is jingoistic. This is fascistic. Oh, it has overtures to the Nazis. We need to demogify, just like we denazified. That's what it's going to be. So I'll give you the last word. But yeah, it's a great point.
I mean, it's so sad, Rob. It really is, because culture and creed used to be what our foundation was. That's what I believed it to be. My grandfather fought, he didn't fight in World War II. He worked on the P-38 Lightning and other aircraft, but he still was a part of that and had bullets fly around him. My father followed suit, Air Force, worked on the KC-135 air refueling wing from Grissom Air Force Reserve Base, and I'm very proud of them and their service and what they did for that. I wish I could have followed suit, but don't have the mind capacity, I guess. Anyway, that's irrelevant. But I look at that, and I look at that patriotism and the old patriotism from way back when, and who knows how many of our fathers and forefathers had to fight to the Revolution or the Civil War and stuff like that. Like, I didn't follow my lineage like maybe you yourself did, you know? But that culture and history has so much blood on itself because freedom isn't free. As we all know, we'll say freedom is free, but it isn't free. And it used to be our culture and creed. And now I fear that if the Democrats win, what do we do? Do we go back? And forgive me for saying this. I'm not trying to break your TOS.
Just don't say it if it's close. Just
do we go back to shedding? That's what I'll say. If you understand what I mean, do we go back to shedding bloodshed? Is that okay to say?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. I get the point you're making. I'll address it here. But Levi, thanks for the call. I do appreciate it.
I thank you.
All right, man. You take it easy. Yeah, I mean, obviously things could get bad. It's one of the reasons I push against the accelerationist narrative. You don't want things to get to the point where Americans are fighting other Americans. It would be horrific. And I think people are naive to think that this is something that's like, well, you know, it won't be that bad. But yeah, we do have to be careful with TOS. Obviously, I'm against any calls to violence and political violence, and that's clearly not what the caller was saying. It's just saying, inevitably, if things get really bad, that's a possibility. We've seen it in history to happen to countries around the world. So, all right. We'll get to the next caller here. Remember, get those super chats in. We're going to go to about 2:30. So we have an hour and a half left. We have 4 callers on the line, so we still have room for callers if you would like to call in. If you like this sort of content, please consider supporting financially. Next up, we have the great Miggy. Then we're followed by Sergio, Level 4 Lobster, and Zach Kelpie. So, Miggy, what's up today, man? How you doing?
Well, pretty good, honestly. Well, I did send the link in the studio chat, because Av was asking me what was, what we like another weather thing he wanted to know about. Well, I posted, it was the weather history from yesterday, actually. And it pretty much comes to surprise anybody that, don't pay attention. You would think tornadoes would be like somewhere in the Midwest all the time, like a giant wedge tornado would be somewhere in the Midwest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually the occurrence. This time, from June 1st, 2011, this was like the last of that big season. This was an EF3, high-end EF3, massive wedge that hit Springfield, Massachusetts. It was on the ground for 38 miles.
Wow.
You can see the visible scar. If you look on the bottom left picture, go to the next one. You can see that's the visible scar that left behind.
Wow.
In southern Massachusetts.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
how do they like it is something you think of, like, you think of like Missouri or something like Tornado Alley. So you don't really think of places like Massachusetts. Crazy. And their structures are probably less designed to deal with that because it's so rare, I would guess, as well.
Yeah, believe it or not, there was another one that was just as more destructive than that one. It was in June 9th, 1953, Worcester, Massachusetts. It was a giant F4 tornado that was on the ground for 47 miles, and it hit the south side of Worcester. It took the lives of I think it was like 94, and it injured over 2,000. Probably one of the worst days in Massachusetts history.
It's crazy. That's unbelievable. So
And believe it or not, the first tornado recorded by settlers was actually in Massachusetts.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. How often do they have tornadoes in like other countries like Europe, like where the settlers would have been coming from?
Believe it or not, the UK actually has more tornadoes per square mile than most countries on the earth. Yes,
Really?
they get, yeah, UK gets a lot. Believe it, but they're mostly on the weaker side. But there have been some strong tornadoes, including violent ones. In fact, there's probably like three distinct tornado alleys you can find in Europe. You get one in the UK, you have another one in Germany, parts of Germany, France, and Belgium. There's also another one in northern Italy, where they do get violent tornadoes.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there
Well,
are other tornado alleys outside of that. In fact, they got one in China that's sort of like that in northern China. You have another one in South America by Argentina.
well, what do you think? We're talking about the UK. Did you see that footage of Novak and the police dragging him? Did you happen to see that on X?
Yeah, I have. Absolutely terrible. Like this, honestly, I'm not even surprised by it. And the reaction that came with it as well. I mean, honestly, it's no surprise that this is like the constant reoccurring thing. And what do we see from conservatives? Well, they see outrage, but we don't really make any changes. We don't want to take any action. We feel like, oh, we still have our principles. But like this, I guess maybe the good news probably behind that will be more populist rising, like the Reform UK, the National Front in France. That's actually gaining a lot of momentum, which is great. And even the other one, the AFD in Germany, they're also gaining momentum. We just gotta keep winning elections. I think that's what we need to keep doing. Is try to keep winning elections. When we do take power, we have to enforce the law. We gotta have to like really say, put the boundary, say no more, no more of this. This has to be either prosecuted for the fullest extent of the law. If judges want to oppose, then we basically impeach the judges. We cannot just keep being wishy-washy when it comes to our legislation. That's
Well,
what we
this
can defeat them with.
Well, and I agree. I think one of the things that is intended, like I've talked about this a lot during the summer of love, like the George Floyd shit. What was going on was you had all these Democrat governors and mayors that were intentionally not sending out their local police force to let the riots get out of hand because they knew, or at least they suspected, that Trump's reaction would be, okay, then we're going to send in the National Guard. Then they would be able to yell fascist, right? It's the same thing you see now. Like in Newark, they wait 4 days or so before they even send in the state police because they want the story, right? They want law enforcement to be considered fascist. They want Renee Good. They want Alex Preddy. Well, one of the things I think they want in the Western world is they keep doing this violence, the double standard, the grotesqueness, right? Because they eventually want a reaction. They want another January 6th. That's their favorite. Ah, a gathering of whites, a gathering of sort of conservatives, etc., that some sort of violence broke out. Now it's time to crack down, baby. More censorship online, more, beating that bully puppet when it comes to, elections and, new laws against this shit. That's the point. And so I think part of this Henry Novak situation is like, they're like, good. And the grooming gang scandal, they're like, good. Yeah, let them see the two-tier. So eventually they say enough's enough and they say, great, finally we could crack down on you. Glad you did it. Glad you got upset. And it's difficult. I remember having conversations with people all through the years after January 6th of like, why you have to even think about going to any rally whatsoever to express your conservative beliefs. Because if some knucklehead or some infiltrator from the feds or Democrat or whatever starts an act of violence, you quite literally could go to prison the rest of your life, or at least a substantial time, and have your life ruined. Be fired from your job, be ostracized from your community, face legal expenditures, even if you don't go to jail. And so, like we have to all the time. You remember, I always have trouble finding these pictures. You remember the January 6th rally that was like years later? It was like 4 or 5 years later. And it was, there was a rally that was there for it, and these feds showed up. They were clearly feds. Like these dudes with like glasses and khakis on, they were all standing there. We have to consider that. Like we have to say, nope, can't go to that rally. The feds are going to be there, right? It's there. Everyone's waiting for it. Everyone in the establishment, all of these groups, all of these lefties, they're like, yes, aren't you outraged? Go do something about it so we can crack down. And so then what do we do? Do we just say, well, we don't go to the rallies. We don't voice our support because we know that there will be the inevitable crackdown. Or do you say, well, we have to attempt it anyways because what do we do? And so we just have to be as vigilant as possible, calling out bad actors that we see as infiltrators, but still try to make our voices heard. It's surreal.
I mean, this is what I mean when it comes to losing the disadvantaged fight that we're dealing with. Of course, even Trump's own DOJ from the first term was also basically just leftoids, pretty much running this stuff, and they didn't want to prosecute because obviously they want Trump to fail. And this is the problem we have. And in fact, this is one of the things I was part of. I do discussions with another group, which is the Liberty Politics. And like I know people are frustrated why it's taking so long to take down the Islamic Republic in Iran. It's because we're facing the Islamic Republic is part of one giant machine that the left is part of. That I call it the Red Green Alliance machine. It's a massive machine with money, influence, and power. And they pretty much own all of Europe. They own America. They own Democrats. They own our institutions. A lot of our adversaries fund these institutions. If you look who our biggest financiers into our universities, it's China and Qatar. They're the two biggest funders of our universities. And this pretty much paints the picture of why we are so much in a disadvantage, because it's a giant machine that's basically bearing down the boot on our necks. And every time we express our discontent through protest and frustrations, so at rallies, they will find any way to crack down on us and press the boot on our necks. This is what we're dealing with. This is why we have to have states like Florida who have taken action, pretty much pass legislation to the point that that type of behavior is not tolerated. And I think other Republican states need to stand up in order to pass legislation. You see what they do in Idaho. You see what they do in Florida. You see what they're trying to do in Texas now. Texas stepping up. Every Republican state who have a Republican majority needs to start taking action. They need to start pushing more harder legislation, more accountability to the city, especially when it comes to their city level judges who allow the psychopaths to run around rampant. Like this so-called inaction that we see from our leadership is unacceptable. If they want to be sitting around and acting like, oh, that we can still be reasoning like we was in 1990, well, that's why we got the primaries for that. They need to get primaried out. In fact, that's what the primaries have been for the past month or so, with all these different primaries, basically telling the message that the old guard that have been inactive against this machine is pretty much ineffective. If you're not going to fight for us, then you're gonna have to get out of the way, because this is pretty much a fight for our own survival. And it's not just for the whites; it's also for anybody that's non-white who doesn't belong to this system. Because I'm one of those that's not that's a minority and fits the box for a lot of the minority checks that the left likes. But I don't really care about their ideology. I'm basically opposed to it. That's why I think if I ever get encounter Brian Shapiro, I'll probably make him spurg harder than what Destiny spurgs every day. Because I would probably trigger him to the point that he would just hate me.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, you're right. I mean, and again, we talk about this a lot, right? The saddest part is the deep red states that have the worst elected officials, that are the most wishy-washy. But it is like, look, there's two ways to go about this. There is doing the best we can, right, within the system and operating within our political system, making incremental changes and understanding that life's not simple. You're not going to snap your fingers and magically have everything you want. And that it took us 60 to 70 years of these globalists controlling almost every institution, whether it be academia, whether it be our culture, Hollywood, the music industry, the tech industry. All of these institutions working together to subvert like sort of the American worker and middle class, etc. And so it's going to take a long time of incremental wins to undo that, or we give into despair and say there's no hope, accelerate everything, fuck it, and let's just leave it become Mad Max and hope that we come out on top. And I think that's a terrible, terrible, terrible plan to go. In fact, that's always the backup plan, anyways. If shit falls apart because we're trying our best to salvage it, but it doesn't work, then we still get that accelerationist plan. It just takes an extra 50 years. So for me, it's like, if you boil it down to sort of what we've been talking about with like the America First people, where it's like, vote Democrat to accelerate it. It's like, I think you can see how poorly that plan's thought out. And elections like Ken Paxton prove it. It would have been taught that John Cornyn was unbeatable 6 years ago when he won. And he'll be there as long as he wants. He, Texas has seniority, and now look, right? And so I think it proves that working within the system actually can have positive gains. I'm not saying it'll solve everything. I'm not even saying that it'll solve things in our lifetime. In fact, we may have peaked as a country. We may never get to those highs that we had in maybe the 80s, early 90s. We may not, but we could get better than the way things are now, right? And to just give in, I think is not a very intelligent thing to do. But I'll give you the last word on it.
Well, this is why I say what like at the end of the day, when it comes to the Groyper crowd, like in the America First crowd, which is kind of embarrassing for them because you saw them, they had that America First event. It was complete disaster, complete unmitigated disaster for them. But regards to what for like those who are frustrated, well, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's still going to take time. You can't wish for the cards you have. You have to make do with the cards you currently have in your hand, not the ones you wish you had in your hands. That's what the lesson comes down to. And despite the cards that we have in our hands, we can utilize it to the max. And just look what happened with John Cornyn. Bro spent $100 million in that election. He's outspent Ken Paxton 10-1. He still lost. They basically threw that shit down the drain. And even like Bill Cassidy. The funny thing is, they say, Zionists control our government, whatever, right? Well, then what? How do you explain Tony Gonzalez, John Cornyn, and Bill Cassidy losing their seats? They are the biggest pro-Israel shows out there, and they still got booted out, anyways.
But you know the answer, right? Everything is it's more proof. It doesn't matter, right? Like it's so frustrating. It really is. I mean, to me, like, look, I'm trying to with that crowd. I try my best to assume, and I do believe this. Many of them actually do want what's best for America. But I think that if they were honest, they think there's no hope. And like this whole vote Democrat to save Republicans, I think they know that there's a very low chance of success, but they're fine with that because they're like, great, then let's bring in 50 million more illegals. Let's do it. Let's start pogroms against white people. Let's do it. Yeah, blood in the street. Let's have them lynch 100 white people, right? And then we'll rise up. That's what they're really hoping.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Well, here's another good news. I don't know if you guys saw, but they had the election, the first round of elections yesterday, or day before yesterday in Colombia. The socialist incumbent lost. So the next two that's advancing are the right wingers, and one of them, which is a pro-Trump, Trump-backed candidate that's hardcore, dealing hard on the cartels. He's basically has the highest chance of winning that election in Colombia. So basically, another socialist government is ready to bite the dust. You see this all over South America, where people are just had enough of this left-wing, Islamo-communist machine that have infiltrated their hemisphere, influence, and they're tired of it. They're booting them all out. You have Ecuador basically taking action against the cartels. You have Bolsonaro. He's actually making a big comeback in Brazil. The odds are in his favor. Colombia, pretty much now you have the chances of a hardcore MAGA style populace taking over that country. You have Maduro gone in Venezuela. El Salvador, Bukele dealing with the crime crisis. You have Jose Paz in Chile won his election earlier this year. You have Milei still holding power. In Paraguay, I think the right wing government is basically winning that one. In Uruguay, the left center government barely holding on by a thread. So the good news is that we are seeing this populist uprising in South America, and you see it in Europe. It's not all doom and gloom. It's going to take a long time to destroy this machine, but the machine is not unbeatable. It still has flaws and cracks in the armor. You just have to find it. You have to have dedication. It's going to take time. You're going to have patience. Patience, dedication, and work. That's what all it takes to actually win.
Yep, I agree. Well, Miggy, always a pleasure to hear from you. Hopefully we'll talk soon, but really appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Yep. Not one step back.
Thank you, man. Take it easy. Thank you over Winslagen says, thanks for taking my call. Again, sorry if I did anything wrong. And then another 5. Thank you. No, you didn't do anything wrong. Not at all. You're perfectly fine. So, and understand it's more just trying to tiptoe around YouTube because we don't even want to give an excuse. Like I said, it's difficult to do this show because unfortunately, the people that intentionally trying to get me shut down from certain communities. So, please consider sending in super chats and everything. We're going to get to the next caller. However, right before we do, I thought I'd show this. I talked about sort of Pennsylvania. There's this big race for governor. Stacey Garrity, who I know and I ran against in 2019. She was one of the 24 people that was in the special election that I ran for Congress. She's running against Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro, who is a Democrat governor, who's for a Democrat pretty popular, even here in Pennsylvania, purple state, he would be a candidate. He is well-spoken. He's intelligent. I don't like him at all, right? But he would be an effective candidate. Less extreme. He's Jewish, though. So will he get the nod for presidential candidate? I don't think so. Here's the latest polling. Josh Shapiro, 53%. Stacey Garrity, 29%. That's abysmal. If it's now, obviously it's early. Stacey's just starting her campaign. That's a hard. If there's any truth to that poll whatsoever, that is a hard hole to pull out of. It's gonna be a real tough race. Now, I plan on trying to get in touch with Stacey's team and doing my best to do everything we can to try to help win that race. And I think Stacey will probably come on the show at some point. But that's where we're at. And I think that race is Pennsylvania is still a very important state. And I think the governorship really matters here. Bandit says, did I see Brian on Sarah's last night? Nah, believe it or not, I don't watch much Sarah Tomato stuff. A trans person called out Brian for having transphobic tendencies. Okay. Yeah. That sounds about par for the course. All right, next caller. We got Sergio up. Remember, get those super chats in if you like this content. I'll probably be doing 3 shows today. This, the extravaganza, and the nighttime show. Everybody really wanted the daytime call-in show, which I have a lot of fun doing. I really do. But I also have limited hours. And if it's a show that's not going to get a lot of interest when it comes to either views or when it comes to financial support, probably going to have to make the decision to go other directions with how I'm spending my time for the channel. So if this is stuff you like, please show some support. Next up, Sergio. What's happening, my man?
Hey, Rob. Yeah, man. It's first time caller calling from Huntington Beach, California, man.
Thank you so much. I assume the weather is wonderful today.
It is.
It always is. So, well, yeah. Thanks so much. I'm honored. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, man. Huge fan, dude. I started listening to you within the last year, and yeah, man, mad respect for your takes, dude. But this is a change of subject. I've been hearing, I do share your sentiment when it comes to the SAVE Act. So I'm all for showing IDs and all that for voting, okay? But one of the things that I was just one of the things that I've been hearing though, like, and I haven't. And by the way, I do apologize if you've talked about this before,
No, it's
but
not.
I just have. Okay. So one of the things is that so I always I listen sometimes to the counter argument to why, like, you know how the Democrats oppose, most of them oppose the voting, you know, vote the Save Act and whatnot. That one of the points that they make is that, like, and I've looked at other, and I have done a little bit of research in this, and where they say that the voter fraud is like a minimal, like it's not enough to justify, because you know, they make this, why the Republicans making such a big deal out of this, because you know, if they're trying to make the case that it's because of the voter fraud, it's so minuscule, why even bother, you know, passing that act? So what would be the rebuttal to that? What's your take on that?
Well, this is very similar to when you see the reports that come out that say, actually, right-wing violence is way worse than left-wing violence. And then when you're like, well, how do they collect this data? One of the ways they collect the data is by people that are charged. So, for example, we'll charge everyone January 6th for any possible crime. Look how much right-wing violence that is. Then when you see riots on a nightly basis in a place like Newark, they don't charge them, and then they say, what violence? We looked at the data, it didn't show up. We looked at the police data, right, because you let everyone go. Similar here. Yeah, because they don't aggressively go after or look in to voter fraud. They then say, see, there's not much voter fraud. The same people that say there's not much voter fraud, the exact same people told you there's not a lot of Medicaid fraud. There's not a lot of fraud with the payment protection program. With the COVID loans, there's not a lot of fraud there. There's not a lot of fraud with hospice care in California. And then as soon as we slightly scratch the surface, you're like, oh my goodness, it's billions of dollars worth of fraud. It's happening everywhere. And they told us for years, not happening, not happening, not happening. Why should it be an issue where more than 80% of this country, that includes leftists, centrist, and right-wingers, says, yeah, you should have to show ID to vote. Why shouldn't they? Every Western country in the world has ID to vote, except the United States, basically. Well, not everyone, but the vast majority do.
Right.
In the United States, we're told that it's somehow racist, black people or rural people can't figure out how to get IDs. And the argument of, it's just not that big of a problem. Why wouldn't the same argument apply then? Well, why have to have alcohol to buy a gun? It's just not that big of a problem. Or why have to have an ID to buy a gun? It's just not that big of a problem. They would say, oh no. So the people that are saying that, you know, I'll tell you, I'll make an analogy. That's something that happened to me in my past. I was working for this fast food place, and there was money coming up missing. And it was like every day we'd be short. The drawers would be short. And so I worked in the back. I never handled money. And so I'm like 18, 19. What do I know? This is what I said. I was like, here's what you do. You give everyone, each woman, person up front gets their own register with their own money. The manager should count that money before the shift, then count that money when the shift ends. No one's allowed in anyone else's register, and bam, it'll take you like one day to find out where the money's coming up missing. And the manager said, well, we don't want to do that. And I said, okay, you're stealing money. It's that simple. Damn. If you don't want to take easy steps that almost everyone agrees are steps that should be taken, if you're like, nah, we don't want to do that, that's because you're uninterested in ending the fraud because the fraud benefits you. That's what's occurring. And so the idea of, well, we just shouldn't have to do it because, trust me, they tell us it's not possible, but it certainly is happening. And if the dam ever breaks, for example, if we find out in Georgia that they did certify hundreds of thousands of votes that shouldn't have been certified, etc., do you think it's going to change one of their minds? You're going to say, oh, now we do have proof? Do you think they'll say, oh, never mind then, Save Act? Of course not. They'll just say, well, that wouldn't have prevented that anyways. And besides, this is all bullshit. It's all bullshit from the Trump administration. If we can, the way I say it, like if I'm trying to explain it for normies, this is what I say. Look at the stakes of elections now. Look at how much money's being spent. We're talking trillions of dollars now being spent in presidential elections. Trillion with a T. We're talking hundreds of millions being spent on some House elections. You know, billions being spent on Senate elections, etc. Right? The stakes are immense. If there is a possibility to cheat, even if you don't think it happened last year or the year before, inevitably someone's going to cheat, right? Inevitably. Maybe it's, and I say this to lefties, maybe it's those damn Russians. We hate those Russians, right? They're always trying to interfere in our system. Maybe they'll cheat. So wouldn't we want security to make sure that they can't do it? You know how those Russians are. They're all going to vote for Don Jr. They're going to rig the system. Oh, and we'll have Trumps for the next 40 years. So how about some election security to protect from a 40-year Trump reign, right? Shouldn't we do that? Shouldn't we have ID? Shouldn't we make sure that we are able to audit our elections? Because if there are loopholes, which there are, ways that, to get into the system, whether it be the actual vote tallies, ballot harvesting, mail-in voting, not having ID, and if the elections are not auditable, which they're not, then it is inevitable that someone will cheat.
Yeah.
I think they already have, but even if you don't think that, they will. And if you're a left-winger and you're like, well, I just don't care about it, there's no reason that eventually the right couldn't cheat. Now, the truth is the reason the Democrats don't give a shit, and a lot of establishment Republicans, is they're fine with that system. Now, you have to ask yourself why. Why would they be fine with the ability to cheat? And you start to ask yourself, like, geez, a Congress that's at like 20% approval, they seem to be absolutely okay with our election systems not being secure. I wonder why. Could it be because they're afraid that maybe if we tightened up our election security, maybe the people would vote the way the polling suggests and get rid of huge portions of Congress, seeing as how they're massively unpopular? So let's just not rock the system, So yeah, that's how I respond to that. I find it's an irrelevant argument. Yeah, you people that don't want election security say we haven't arrested anyone for it, therefore no need to secure the elections. It's just nonsensical. And if you're trying to be more polite about it, it's like, yeah, but inevitably someone will cheat given the high stakes. So why not secure the system before then? So.
Yeah, especially too, like a lot of people are so black-pilled about it too. I mean, if they were to just, make that a thing to show ID, I think it would also bring more faith into the system, because I know a lot of people just are like, I'm not even going to bother. It's already decided. They're not, you know what I mean? It is super frustrating, and I 100% wish that we, like every other most of the Western countries, that yes, show freaking ID, and it's really easy to get. And this idea that it's racist because some people can't, it's just weird, dude. These people are just so weird.
Yeah, well, and I mean, again, it's at some point, like the question of, well, is it just mistakes that are like? Take this example. Our entire media class somehow missed that Joe Biden was a human vegetable. Was it an accident, or do you think it was intentional? The Democrats just accidentally opened the border up and tens of millions of people came in. Was it an accident, or was this the intended consequence? At some point, you have to start saying, when these people in power continue to have these consequences rear their head again and again, you have to ask yourself, doesn't it seem like this is the intended outcome? When it keeps happening. And so with this, it's like they absolutely are allowing the system to have predictable fraud possible because they want it that way. Why? Why would they want it that way? They want people to feel hopeless and disenfranchised, by the way. They don't want you. I say this all the time. Like, the greatest thing the globalists have is like, you're right, America first. You're right, black-pilled Republicans. Don't vote or vote Democrat. Yep, absolutely. You guys nailed it. Yep. Damn those Jews. You got it. You're showing them. And I used to tell lefties this too, in college, like, because I was friends with a lot of left-wingers in debate, and you'd get these hippie people to be like, man, we should just stop voting and, like, go live in the woods and, like, get some weed and some hand drums and shit. And I was like, yeah, you know who signs up on that plan? George Bush and Dick Cheney. They're like, absolutely. You guys just go smoke weed and play hand drums. We'll take it. We'll take care of shit. You guys go for it, right? They want people to be out. It's not that they can't cheat or do nothing or be corrupt if people are voting, but the more people that are taking an active interest, the harder it becomes. And so if you continue to put pressure on it, it makes it easier. I say this, for example, it's easy theoretically to steal an election that's only been decided by 5,000 votes. It'd be real hard to do one that was decided by 5 million, or much harder.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to vote beyond the fraud, which is terrible, But that's the first step to it. So
All right, Rob, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the
thanks for
yeah.
calling in,
Now I
man.
understand your rebuttal. Yep, I appreciate that, man.
Hey, you have a good one. Hope
You
things
too.
going
Thank you,
well there
man.
in Cali. Take it easy, man. All right. Mendozi over on Rumble. $10 says Rob. Now Rob. Yes, of course. Thank you so much. All right. We got Level 4 Lobster, Zach Gelpy, Premonition, and Heavy coming up. Remember, get those super chats in. Next up, we got our friend Level 4 Lobster. How you doing this fine day?
How's my mic coming across? Am I coming across clear?
Yep, sounds good to me.
All right, Rob, your pick. Do we want to talk about my attempt at a white pill, or do we want to talk about how bad Pisco is?
Oh, well, let's flip a coin. Let's see. We'll go
My vote's
with...
Pisco.
All right, let's do it. That's what came up in my coin too. So go for
All
it.
right, what a piece of shit. I just, what a sack of fucking human waste on fire, man. Like, he is the worst. And I actually, like, and I understand why you defend him, because he is entertaining as far as content. So I get that from the content aspect. Like, it's hard to give up an asset like that because there is so little content besides him that you can talk to. And he's really, I mean, I'm not saying he's dumb. He's not a dumbass. We're not saying that. But like, I also get so sick of just giving compliments to piece of shit people. Like when everyone's like, Nick Fuentes is funny, I was like, well, he is, but he's also this huge piece of shit. So I don't give a fuck that he's funny. The same with the Pisco. Like, he's an intelligent individual. Now, is law school what it was 40 years ago? Probably not. I mean, everyone gets an award society. Probably has let a few lawyers in that shouldn't have passed the bar. But I would like to get your honest opinion. I know you're debating him, but like, I'm gloves off. Like, this man is honestly, well, he's dishonestly approaching everything. Like, even in the conversations you've had with him, where he's fucking got a grin on his face because he knows he's fucking lying, and he's saying what he needs to say. And when you shoot back his attempts at him or his practices at him, he's like, "Come on, Rob. Come on, Rob." I was like, "No, he's a piece of shit. I'm tired of engaging with these people who aren't sincere." And the only thing I'm getting out of it is every once in a while a good clip, and it is irritating.
So there's several things to look at. First off, I'll just give my honest opinion. I do like debating people, right? And I like debating people that can form coherent thoughts. So people like Destiny, Pisco, etc. Whatever I feel of them personally, I enjoy those sort of interactions, as frustrating as they could be. My feeling is with Pisco, I think that he is absolutely bad faith. It's difficult to determine what that term really means. Is he bad faith because he knows that he's lying and full of shit at times? Sure. But are there also times where he doesn't realize it because subconsciously his bias is so strong that he just doesn't realize the absurdity of the positions he's taking? I think both things are true at times. And for example, I could just go through some quick examples. He is trying to tell you with a straight face while smirking that he thinks absolutely every single one of the investigations and indictments against Trump were brought because it had nothing to do with his political station. Had he not been president, had he not been running again, etc., they still would have brought all these charges. It had nothing to do with him as the president, etc. That's laughable. It's laughable to think that the mortgage case, that the Alvin Bragg case, all of this shit, it's laughable to think that politics didn't have anything to do with it. That's a lie. He knows that's a lie. And he knows that there's utility in saying that lie. Or the case, for me, the big black pill in Pisco was the Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm, and him trying with the straight face to say, not to get too in the weeds with this, but the big thing for me was, He said over and over that lying to law enforcement was a serious crime and blah, 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 if it was material to the investigation. And he said that there was no chance that Bowman didn't know that an alarm would go off if he pulled it, right? Then once we showed the police report where the police said, we asked him, did you intend for an alarm to go off? And he said no. Now, according to Pisco's own rationale, that's a blatant lie. Why shouldn't Jabal Bowman be charged? And Pisco immediately does a 180 and goes, no. I think when he said no, he meant yes. That's what he meant. They said, did you intend for an alarm to go off? And he said no. And what he really meant was, oh, yes, I did intend for that alarm to go off, but not all of those ones. And so maybe it wasn't a lie. Now, that's bullshit. I know it. You know it. Bisco knows it. All of his audience knows it. All of my audience knows it. But he runs with it. Because to him, what it gets right down to it is Pisco is a person that's just a stereotypical lefty. And I talk about this all the time. The vast majority of these people at this point, I mean the majority, like 80% of them, of the people that vote Democrat, and not your average voter, but the people that take it the next step further and are arguing about it online, or they're a streamer, or they're a media person, or they're a politician. So that second level and higher of people that are involved in politics, right? I think they have principles. They do. And so you might have someone that says, my principle is that I'm very critical of law enforcement, or my principle is I'm a free speech advocate, and blah, blah, blah. I believe they have those, but all of them are subservient to one hierarchical principle, which is orange man bad. And so everything, we don't trust law enforcement until it's the FBI going after Trump. Then we implicitly trust them because Trump's bad. We think that for petty reasons, going after politicians for lawfare, that's stupid. We shouldn't do it, except for Trump. Trump's bad, so fuck it. Do whatever you want against Trump. And so because of that, he comes to the conclusion that it's the double standards don't matter. Trump is evil. Trump is Hitler. He is. And so what if I have to go on a stream and lie and say, oh no, I don't think that he was targeted for political reasons? Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit if I have to make bullshit up to describe why we need to end the filibuster, create 2 new states, pack the Supreme Court to 13 seats, endorse guys that have Nazi tattoos, have legislator, I don't know if he's advocated the legislator having, power to prevent Supreme Court justices for lying, as was suggested by Kamala Harris. But when you look at all this shit in a picture, it's like, how can this guy say, my opponents are radical, look what they're doing, and then advocate all the shit that's objectively rational? It's because the standards don't apply to them, because they're good people. And that's how they all are. And so you have to, when you're arguing with Bisco, that's why Ryan's strategy was like, look, you're trying to, it's not even worth engaging with you on this sort of game level of, well, this is the specific topic and I'm going to narrow. I want to talk about what you're really interested in. You're really interested in packing the court to 13, right? And so that's sort of where Ryan was going with it. So why do I debate these people? Well, one, for my own personal entertainment, right? But secondly, and I think this is important, I think competent people should debate these people because it allows the world to see how extreme they are. Because when they hide in their own bubbles and then they peek their head out, they try to just be like, oh no, we're the reasonable people. We don't believe in extreme shit. And then when they're in their little bubbles and when you could press against it, it turns out they believe some of the most extreme shit you can imagine. So it's important to have these conversations. And if this is the best the left has, well, they got a lot of work to do. And by the way, it may be that the people that we're debating, like the Destinies or the Biscos or these sorts of people, who else? That you don't really see the debates at the political level. Right? Who would you say is a good Democrat politician that you think's a great debater on this? Who? I don't know. How about in the media? You got Adam Mockler, and you got Kyle Kulinski, and you got David Pakman. That's who they have. And so you debate these people, or as close to them as you could get, and you show just how shit their ideas are. But there is a risk if you're not prepared of you let them perceptually look good that are bad faith bullshitters that'll lie right to your fucking face, and they're lying to an audience and they can't be called out. So
I just found it comical that your joke tactic of being like, I'm just gonna lie. Everything I say is just gonna be untrue. I'm just gonna go here and say what I need to say in order to win this prompt. And that's the way Like, I disagree with you. I don't think Orange Man Bad is their sole principle. Their sole principle is winning. That is it. Because once Orange Man Bad is gone, it's going to be the next coming of Orange Man, whether it be JD Vance or someone else.
You're absolutely right, but all of it, some of it intentional, some of it not. These people truly believe that Trump is Hitler. You believe that, right? They truly believe he's like the most evil man alive. They believe that.
I think
Pisco does. He absolutely does. And he will convince himself that Mitt Romney is next time. And he'll convince himself that Susan Collins is next time. But he has convinced himself. I
don't think so. I think, here's what I think. And this personally, you may be right, and I may be way off base. It's not that they've all been convinced that Trump is Hitler. It's that Trump hit back. Trump punched them right back in the face and laughed in their face. Trump embarrassed them. Now twice. It has nothing to do with Trump being Hitler. Trump did what all the Republican candidates before him did not do. Instead of groveling and apologizing for his behavior, he doubled down. He did the same tactic they did, and it embarrassed him.
Well, yes, but that's why he is Hitler. Do you believe this? Do you believe they think white people are bad?
No, I don't think they believe that.
They do. I absolutely believe it from the bottom of my heart. Then why do they give a shit? If whites are just as good as blacks or minority, why do they care? If Christians are just as good as why would they care? Why are they
power blocks? Power blocks. They don't like Christians.
Power for what? What's the intent of the power? To do what?
To be in control, to have the keys to the castle.
For what?
So they can make the rules. They want to be the ruler.
What are the rules? And for what? Why do you need to make the rules? If everyone
you don't here's the thing. Here's the thing, Rob. I like this getting heated a little bit. A little blood pressure going. I'm taking a little break. Don't tell anyone. Here's the thing. It's like as bad as it looks, as bad as the left looks right now, because they've taken on their extremists and made it mainstream. Like, because in my head, I'm thinking they're doing this because they want power. It is all about power, and this is the quickest way to power. And what the leftist extreme is racist. It is exclusionary to the max. Like, and the Democrats
as a whole. You don't believe that. It's just power. If white people,
I think
the race hucksters, the Jesse Jacksons, the Al Sharptons would immediately say, actually, white people are superior if more whites started voting Democrats than blacks. That's your belief.
If more blacks started voting Republican, they would become
blacks. 80% of blacks vote Republican, and
the Democrats would all of a sudden open up the KKK again. They would be the founders of the KKK.
No. I'm not asking that. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, they're going to say white people are superior all of a sudden because they're voting Democrat. White people superior. You think that's what they would do? No.
No,
the truth is the psychology.
You're grabbing extremes. You're grabbing extremes, Rob.
No. It's not. The truth is that what we see is that so many of these groups have an in-group preference, and you can go to a psychological profile of this. So it's like the overbearing mother. That's what the feminine energy that comes from these people is exactly that. That my group matters. The people in my group, the categories matter, and I will defend them, and everyone against them is an evil motherfucker that must be taken down. That's what they do. And they have been conditioned to believe that those groups are superficial things, like your biological sex, your sexual orientation, your skin color, your religion, your wealth, all of that stuff. They believe it. Now, are there people at the top that are utilizing the fact that people believe that in order to obtain power? Of course, that's the case. But these people believe it. They believe it. They believe white people are oppressors. They believe Christians are oppressors. They believe Western countries are racist. There ain't no faking it. They fucking believe that, the vast majority of them. They really do. And so, the idea that no, they don't really have a preference on white people versus people of color. Do you think the lefties that you see that are intentionally going to places like Pakistan and being fucking murdered, do you think it's a lie? They're just doing it for, no, of course not. They have believed that. They have forced themselves to believe that from the bottom of their heart, that it's all a misunderstanding, that these people are noble, and it's the evil white colonial, people, the colonizers that have spread this hateful message. They believe that shit. They really do. And
there are people that do believe that, Rob, but I think you're looking at a small percentage of the Democrats, like the grandma that's making cookies at the Democrat National Convention meeting in Minnesota or wherever. She's not thinking that. She's thinking, oh, all the Republicans are just racist. They just hate brown people. That's it. It's a stereotype. It's a stereotype that has been built in their head. They're not. But that grandma isn't. No. Hold up. That grandma is not saying, man, white people fucking suck. I hate all white people. Being white herself. She's not.
Yes, she is. She's not thinking it that way, but she's thinking white people need to take a back seat and people of color need to have their voices heard. Yep, that's exactly what she's thinking.
I'll give you that. She is more open to hearing the nonsense view.
She believes that. She believes it. Absolutely. It's not more open. They actually believe. Yes, white people, they believe themselves are racist. They do. They believe, I do have subconscious racism as a white person. Yes, more than 50% of the Democratic Party believes that. Absolutely. They absolutely do. And they absolutely believe if you're conservative, you're evil. And they absolutely believe that white people have been a net evil and that Western countries have been evil. They believe this shit. It's not just them all pretending to care about this shit just so that Democrats could win. And you might say, okay, well, they want to win for power. What does that do to the grandma that's making the cookies? What's her power if Democrats win?
Well, the grandma
Why
baking the cookies.
Why would she do this elaborate lie that they're all
because
because
the grandma has looked at her life and she's realized, man, I've had a really privileged life. And some people aren't as privileged as me. And that used to be what the Democratic Party was. It was empathy.
But that's
now what has happened now is it's empathy on overdrive. And I don't place that grandma. She is misled, not that she believes all these random things that you're saying. They've just been told, I just don't believe it. Because I like I said, it's weird because I have grandparents that may swing on the left-hand side of things. And they may not be completely happy with the way things are. But they don't sit here and think white people are to blame.
Let me get this straight. You believe they've been misled to think Trump supporters are evil?
Yeah.
You believe they've been misled to think Republicans are evil?
Now, they haven't liked Republicans ever. So, but evil, I think... It's weird because it used to be back in the day that the left thinks the right is evil and the right thinks
We're talking now, not back.
But I'm saying even back in the day, I could even let you say evil.
Let me go through my line. So you believe those two things, but don't believe they've been misled to think that white people are inherently racist. They haven't been misled for that. That they're pretending to believe, but they're lying. They do believe that Trump supporters are evil. They do believe that Republicans are evil, but they've been misled about the race part. And they're pretending. That's your argument.
Yeah, well, yes, because everyone is self-interested. I still hey, if the cops come to you, and it's like, hey, I'm gonna put you in jail in 20 years, or you're gonna give up, whose house you were at last Saturday and what they were doing. More than likely, I mean, it sucks to be a snitch, but you're giving that person up. You're giving a little piece of yourself up so that you can save yourself.
I don't see the relevance whatsoever.
The relevance is the left has turned into something that it wasn't. And now, even the normies, the normal people, the grandmas, are sitting there and be like, I could poke my head out, but we know what happens when we poke my head out. So I'm just going to play along.
I don't see how this is responsive to our disagreement here. Sure.
Okay, go ahead. What am I not responsive? What was the question?
The question is, do they really believe the cultural Marxist shit about race, about biological sex, about sexual orientation, about religion, about all the things they believe, that there are oppressors and oppressed? You're like, no, they're faking. Your argument is they're faking it all except Trump supporters. That they believe. That Trump supporters are terrible and evil and oppressors. Every other group, they're just pretending and they're faking.
Well, when we say they, what percentage are we talking about? Would I say 50%? 80%? No. Yes. I would say half of the Democratic Party has lost their fucking mind. I wouldn't say 75%.
That's not responsive to my argument. I agree.
Hold up. Stop. I'm not approaching your argument right now. I'm just trying to get an understanding of what they is, okay?
Yeah.
So if we're saying, if you're thinking 70 to 85%, no, then the answer is no. They don't believe that Trump supporters are evil. They just believe the easier path is to shut their mouth and say nothing.
No. Well, first off, I was talking about specifically what I said was like that second class, the ones that are commentating, people like Pisco, the people that are arguing on social media, etc. Right? I was saying that, but nonetheless, like again, what you said there's not really responsive to what I'm saying. They're saying this shit. The ones that are saying this, yes, white people are inherently racist. Yes, this country is founded on systemic racism. You're like, they don't believe that. They don't believe that at all. They're just lying. They're pretending. They do believe Trump supporters are terrible, evil, horrible. They believe that, but all the other stuff they're saying about, and white people are systemically racist, and, you know, straight people are bigoted against minorities, and all this shit, they don't believe any of that. I don't see how you've offered any proof of that theory, other than just I feel that's not the case.
Well, here's the thing. So let's do a sports analogy.
Okay.
And say Texas, the University of Texas, the Longhorns, the burnt orange, the ugly cow thing. You know, it's another Texas problem. But there's a lot of schools around the country that think Texas is just fucking horrible. Mm-hmm. Most likely because Texas has been pretty dominant in a lot of sports and probably kicked the shit out of that person's college football team multiple times.
Sure.
So there's a hatred for the other side. There's a hatred for that team. And I'm willing to fucking call everyone, every fan of theirs, the worst name in the book. And I don't believe it. I just hate that team so much. And I think that is a big part of what is occurring. This is two college football fans that are fucking yelling at each other. And we're going to say everything in the book because, you know what? I hate the team. I don't hate the individuals. Now, there are some that do. I'm not saying that they're not. There are some crazy ass people on both sides. And I don't want both sides because most of them are on the left these days. But just to bring it back full circle, I don't think, even though Pisco is a piece of shit, I don't think Pisco hates white people.
It's not a matter of hating white people. He thinks they're systemically racist. He believes that.
I don't think he does. But maybe that's the question you can ask.
He's absolutely, he'll fight tooth and nail to have every illegal immigrant be able to stay.
But why?
He'll say,
why? But why?
Because
it goes back to power. He wants their vote. He don't care that they're brown. He cares that they're going to vote for his team.
I think what you're doing is you end up whitewashing this. It means that we can never get to the root of the problem. You will be there championing to the end of the day the people that want to systemically kill white people and displace them from every Western country. Trust me, bro, it's not that bad. They're just trying to win. It's no different than your football team trying to save their time out to ice the kicker. Same thing. It's not. It's evil. It's worse than that, right? There is a hatred of these groups because they view them as oppressors. It's why things like Henry Novak could occur. Those police in their heart of hearts believe the racial narratives that are said. That's why they could look at a minority saying he said mean words about me and handcuff and drag across the cement a white guy who's been stabbed, who's bleeding for his life, right? That's why it occurs. They weren't faking it in that instant. They weren't like, actually, we don't believe any of this shit. It's just have our team win. And so we're going to pretend to have this calculus, blah, 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 drag this guy across because it's all part of our ruse to make sure that labor wins here in the United Kingdom or something. That's not what's going on. You are right that they want power and possibly the calculations could change, but it is absolutely, these people believe many of the narratives they're saying. Does it mean every individual believes it? No. It's also stupid to even talk about. Why would I give a shit at the end of the day if they're faking it or they don't? But I absolutely refuse to believe. I've seen the racial hatred over and over in the debate community. I've seen black people look at me with foam in their fucking mouth that hate me for the color of my skin. I've fucking seen it. And I refuse to believe that, no, it's all just an elaborate, they're the best actors that have ever existed, and it's an elaborate ploy that really they're just like, hey man, it's just all about vote Democrat. That's all it's about. No hard feelings. We don't even really dislike you. We're just saying vote Democrat. That's all it's about. I think that it's clearly worse than that. We see it at almost every level when it comes to sort of our judicial system, the way it operates, our political system, our cultural systems. There's a demonization of white people that we see. There's a demonization of Christians. There's a demonization of right-wingers. There's a demonization of straight people. All of these, we see it systemically. We see academia becoming more and more radically left and the people that are coming out of it becoming more and more radically left. And I refuse to believe that somehow something changed, or that nothing's changed and it's the same as it was in the 60s or the 40s or the 20s. It's just Democrats just want to win. That's all this is. No, I think there is clearly more to it, that something's changed, that's made this shit more likely to occur. And I think my hypothesis, where I could draw a direct line through academia to see how these Marxists that came, that after the Gulag Archipelago was written, that showed that communism was shit, so they all of a sudden transferred to say, wait a minute, what if instead of pushing the narrative that it's all about economics, we push that narrative on a bunch of other shit like race? I think you could draw a straight line from the writings of that, how that got into academia, and how more and more people believe it now. I don't think that it's all an elaborate ruse, that all these people are just pretending, and that none of them believe it, or the vast majority.
Okay, if that's true, let's take a who's the guy that you tried to debate? He keeps bouncing out. He's the kind of the centrist dude. You were just talking about his Twitter thing the other day. Hutch. We'll look at Hutch, right?
It was Josiah I was talking about, but fine.
Okay,
Hutch,
sorry.
fine. It doesn't matter.
Even Josiah, they're kind of
they're lefties, but go ahead.
Okay,
but fair enough.
Okay, so when the Democratic Party lost to Trump, right? When they took the huge L, more, okay, well, we don't call them centrists, but less lefty individuals on the left, okay? They looked at that and be like, hey, we've got to drop this trans shit. We've got to drop this other shit. We're losing, we are bleeding male, young age males like no one's business. We have to change what we're doing. And so for me, that shows me that they don't believe this. Because if they believed it in their heart of hearts, they would fight to the very end to hold these things. But once they realize it's a liability, they are dropping it. Even said woke has been put away.
They're not dropping it. They'll temporarily drop it, and then if that's the case, then if your hypothesis is correct, then if Democrats win, they'll never embrace the trans shit again, right?
If they win on a if they don't push the trans shit and the trans shit is not there and they win, if they do push the trans shit and they lose again, would you say they would keep pushing it?
Why would they push it again if they know it's a lose? Me and you both agree the trans argument's a loser, right?
I think it showed that it was a loser.
Okay,
I think there's
then now no Democrat will push it ever again because they know it's a loser, right? If it's all fake,
no.
Why would they push it?
They still need coalitions. They still need the people that believe this stuff to be on their side.
Wait, but no one believes it. They're all faking it. We'll say the
No. We're back to no one.
No, wait.
We're back to no one.
We'll say the 0.03% of people that are trans. They need those people?
No, they need that 50% that of the lefties that we talked about earlier. Not all, but they need that 50% of lefties that do actually believe this to be on their side.
So now you're saying the number is 50% that actually.
No, that was come on, Rob. We didn't agree on a number. We just threw 50 out there to be safe, and now you're using that against me. Come on now.
Oh, okay, so
be
then
generous.
give me the percentage you're thinking. Somewhere between 20 and 80?
I think it's closer to 20 than 80.
Okay, so they're willing to, on a 2080 issue, embrace where they know 80% of the country is against them, but they're willing, when you're saying it has been shown that it's a loser, they're willing to go back out there and make the same losing argument that cost them elections, but they don't believe it. That's your argument.
Yes, that is my argument, but not the way you put it.
Right. What I'm saying is more believe it than you would be led to believe. Now, the trans issue is a little different.
How close? How close are the last few elections, Rob? How close were they?
They're all going to be close. Okay?
Yes.
So why would you intentionally be on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue?
Right now, what they're betting on, and why it's getting hot again, they're betting on, especially on a midterm, that all they have to do is energize their base. That's why the crazies are coming out super hot right now, because most people don't get fired up for fucking midterms. The turnout is much lower.
I guess the point is, I don't even see the point of this argument. I think that it's dangerous to adapt to your perspective because
what perspective am I when I'm spewing? I guess
they don't really hate you for being white. They don't really hate you for being Christian.
They are. I agree. Democrats as a whole. Democrats as a whole. Every Democrat. Anyone registered Democrat.
So just to be clear, when you just said 50%, it was bad for me to say.
Once back to 50, I said closer to 20.
But now you're implying that I'm saying every single one, 100%. That's what you're
when you
relying
say
on me
they,
now, all right?
I wanted you to clarify, Rob. You said they, did you not? I just asked for clarification.
I said that a majority of the Democrats that say this shit believe it. That's what I'm saying. The trans issue is a little different before you cut me up, I was saying, because it's sort of a newer issue. And I do think that they're seeing that it's fringe issues that in their heart, they're like, this is bullshit, but they have to go with it. But that's because they believe and they know that their audience believes so much of the other cultural Marxism that they've pushed. They believe the race shit. They believe the anti-Christian shit. They believe the wealth stuff. They really do. They believe it. They believe landlords are evil. They believe billionaires are evil. They believe white people are systemically racist. They believe these countries were colonizers and founded evil. They believe that. The majority of their voters believe that. They believe it's not a ploy when they're being polled and it said, would you rather live next to a Trump supporter or an MS-13 member? And the majority of them say MS-13. They believe that shit. This isn't a ploy to win an election. Of course, I'd rather live by the Trump supporter, but because I'm anonymously filling out this poll, I'll pretend it's MS-13 because that'll help us win an election.
I just don't believe that they believe that, because I honestly think it's kind of like the bear in the woods and the man. I think if you put in it, like, it's easy to say what you should do, like, especially if you're trying to appeal to your group. But when the situation is put in front of you, if you're buying a home and you come up to the home and there's MS-13 members, like 12 deep, or a Trump flag out, I guarantee even the people that are saying, oh, I live next to MS-13, they ain't picking that house. They ain't.
I don't know that you're right. I think evidence shows to the contrary. Maybe in that situation you'd be right, but evidence certainly shows that, like, you see an awful lot of lefties that are like, yeah, I'm going to go in the inner city. It's cool. It's hip. And they get stabbed and killed. Remember that guy, that journalist went there, got stabbed right in front of his girlfriend. Then his girlfriend came out and said, don't go after that guy. There's an awful lot of these judges and shit that are like, we do believe you've been systemically disenfranchised, Mr. Black Rapist, and so we're going to cut your time in half and we're going to cut your bail. They believe this shit. They do.
There are some that do. So I'll give you that. Just so we can stop it.
More than half, I believe that's the case. And
I disagree with the number, but it's fine. You're right.
But anyways, like, at the end of the day, the difference hardly matters. I think that it's important to try to isolate exactly where these causes are. But yeah, at the end of the day, it comes out the same. As far as just to wrap it up, like talking Episco and shit, and like people like that, look, I think that it's important to illustrate just how extreme they are and what their actual beliefs are, and to do our best to show sort of his audience. You might peel off, and that's happened. I've peeled off some people from those audiences.
I'm from Destiny's audience.
Yeah, so I think that it's worthwhile interacting. Now, it's different because some people go in and they're not prepared, and then they end up looking bad. You see this a lot of these, like, unfuck America things. Someone will come out and just be like, oh, Destiny, Trump's the best, and your wife left you. And then they end up looking poor because they're not prepared. So I think that it's worthwhile. Not everyone has to do it, but I do think it's worthwhile exposing these people, because otherwise what happens is, it's just like they'll say, well, everyone's afraid to debate us. See, these are good arguments and everybody knows, and they won't talk about it. And so these are the arguments, and normally you start to be like, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there is something to. No one's capable of arguing against this. They're all running scared. It's like a fighter that everyone's like, oh, no one will fight that guy. He must be right. He must be the best. So
well, I think that sorry, real quick, Rob, sorry. I think the one thing, like, I'm not, if I made the impression when I was talking shit about Pisco that I don't want you to debate him, that's not what I'm at all saying. I had two issues with this debate you have coming up. One, the fact that we're going to have to deal with whether or not the first debate he had with Ryan was good. Like, that's so dumb. But whatever. I hope that it doesn't dominate most of the conversation. But I will give Ryan. I mean, Ryan did take the dub, and I don't even mind that he said he didn't care about the prompt. Like, what Ryan did, I think everyone should take on board, because that is the way they debate. They don't really give a shit about the facts. They just want to fucking say Orange Man bad, thus you support Orange Man, thus you bad, thus everything you say is bad. And the way Ryan went at it, he's like, you know what? No, Pisco, you're a piece of shit. And it worked. It really did work. You know how I know? Because Pisco's mask slipped. When Ryan was really getting into him, Pisco got angry and he called us barbarians and bullshit. Like, that is his true view. He's like, he thinks that everyone's on the right a barbarian.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it was still a mistake to say I don't give a shit at all about the prompt because, as far as I'm concerned, Ryan was actually talking about the real meaning of the prompt. And so, if you are someone who just watched like 10 minutes of it, you're going to be like, oh, one guy entered a debate in bad faith and refused to even talk about what the prompt was because he had some sort of personal beef. That sounds bad. And so I think Ryan made a mistake in that. But if you watched and saw what was going on and saw that Ryan actually did talk exactly about what Pisco wanted and proved him to be a fool, is there any doubt that the latter half of that debate was better for Ryan than the first half? I think it was.
I loved the whole thing. I thought Ryan did a great job. So,
but all right. Well, hey, Lobster, I appreciate the call as always, man. If you're working, stay safe out there. But it's always great to talk to you, man.
thanks for your time, Rob. And I also appreciate arguing. So thank you for putting up with me.
All right, man. You take it easy.
Have a good one.
Yep. All right. I don't have a hard out, but I do have to end at some point. Cynic. Oh, okay. I recognize your name now as the Cynic. $10 says, thanks for taking my call. It was my pleasure, man. Thank you for calling in. James Lindsay's hands. $5 says, all Democrats use white as an insult. Yeah. And Jason Mulgren, $10 says, Hegg says strikes female and black Navy officers from promotion list. The Secretary of Defense decision to block the officers' promotions appear to be driven by his anti-diversity stance. Yeah, whatever. More bullshit from the New York Times. All right. Let's try to get to that goal. We're only 21% of the way. We could do it here in the waning minutes. Next up, we got Zach Gelpy. What's happening, Zach?
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Good. Very good.
Good. I have a couple things to say. I first want to talk a little bit about a couple of callers ago speaking, is it to the point where we might need to think about doing similar things that our founding fathers did? Let's put it that way.
Okay.
How about we vote first? Let's try that. Let's actually try to get out the vote, because if we can't even get that, how are we going to get people to do the other thing?
I totally agree. I think a lot of what happens is it's easy to sit back. Again, we've talked about this a lot, but voting for local elections, voting for primaries, all of these things are important too. And it seems like a lot of people's thought is this we'll vote for president maybe. And if it doesn't work out and everything we wanted, well, then fuck it. We tried. It didn't work. So now let's prepare for the worst. And it's no, it's not easy. There's a lot of hard work and a lot that could be done, but a lot of people just don't want to do it. They just
and it's a continuous amount of work.
Right.
It's
it never
not just
ends.
something. It never ends.
Yeah.
It never ends. As long as there's a communist breathing, our rights are in trouble.
I totally agree with you. Yep.
That's just one aside. The thing with level 4 lobster, I'm kind of in between you guys. I can see level 4 lobster's point, but it's in a different kind of vein. I think you're right that these people believe it, but I think that they're indoctrinated into believing it.
Agree. Yeah,
and they can believe and they can be indoctrinated to believe the other side as well. That's what I think. People are sheep. So if what level 4 lobster said in the beginning, that if the powers that be on the left saw that there was more of an advantage politically to gain power to now support white people versus black people or minorities, they would do it. And they would convince their underlings and indoctrinate them to them believing that. As of where it stands right now, do these people actually believe the things that they believe? Yes, they do.
Yeah, I agree with you. Right? For example, here's one way I could say it. Right? Because I know Lobster's feelings on the Groypers. You think the Groypers are they just pretending about the anti-Israel stance? I think they're not. I think they're very serious. And if you were yeah, but what if all of a sudden Israel would vote the way you wanted them to vote.
But that's a different. That's a different. See, different. How do I put it? Different crux of people have a very, like, leftists are very susceptible of being indoctrinated, whereas conservatives don't, because our mindset is more individualistic, not communal.
Yeah, no, I agree. But even if you accept it, like even 1-to-1, okay, the lefties on college campuses that are from the river to the sea and all of that, you think they believe that, or is it just like, we're just pretending, we're just trying to get Democrats?
I don't.
Of course
Okay,
they
so
believe it.
in terms of that, I think that the vast majority, and you can watch the videos, they don't even know what river to the sea means.
I know, but you know damn well that they're like, fuck Israel, and they really believe it. They really do.
But only because they've been indoctrinated to believe it.
I agree with that.
If they were indoctrinated on the other side, they would be, on the other side. Whereas Groypers, they're actual ideologues. Like, they actually firmly believe. That's why Nick Fuentes doesn't get along with the Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlsons and the Megyn Kellys, because he sees through their bullshit. They are just grifting. They don't actually believe, or they're getting incentives, let's put it that way, whether it be a new audience or maybe another foreign entity convincing them financially to whatever it is. I don't know what their incentives are, but they made a sudden shift, and it probably has more nefarious reasons why. Whereas Nick Fuentes actually believes the shit he believes.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess what I would say is this: like, when it comes then to it's one of the most, to me, to be honest, like, I like Lobster and I don't mind having that conversation, particularly on like a Colin show type thing, perfectly fine. But it is one of the most boring conversations I have. It's very much like was the FBI inept or are they corrupt? It's like, well, the end results are the same, basically, from my perspective. So to waste too much brain power on it. But I will say this: I think that it is worth trying to actually navigate what's really going on. So if you take it from the perspective of the person that I'm debating, I believe that they truly believe Trump's evil. Truly, deep down believe it. They truly believe it. They truly believe this country's systemically racist and that Trump's leading this country down to systemic racism. They truly believe that those of us that are like, we want secure borders and stuff, that it's because at least part of us is racist, right? And that's the intent. They truly believe that. And
just like they believed it with Bush.
That's
right. And then the power, but this actually goes to my point exactly. This what you just said goes to my point exactly. So they were saying the exact same things about Bush, right? And then Bush got out of power, and then Trump got into power, and now all of a sudden Bush is, why can't we get another Bush? So it's not just the powers that be saying that. That's the underlings. And the reason they're saying that is because they've now been indoctrinated that Bush wasn't so bad.
No, I agree.
It's the same thing with freaking the guy who couldn't raise his arms, McCain.
But here's why it matters.
He was their darling when he was going against Bush, right? They loved him. And then he ran for president, and then all of a sudden the same tropes that were levied against Bush were levied against McCain.
No, I agree. But here's why it matters, because if you take the mindset, no one, or the vast majority of them don't really believe this. It's just about winning, and then it's a pat in the ass. Hey, good game. You guys tried. That's not the case, right? It's not that like they win and they're like, good one, guys, good. We're not actually going to do negative shit to you. We just wanted to win. That's it.
No, they want to do the negative shit, but that's in course of solidifying power.
No. See, that I disagree with. Yes, that's true, the people at the top, but there are people that want to do negative shit to you because they fucking hate you. because they hate you. They
You're
do.
talking about the people on the ground.
Well, yes, the people at the top, of course, they're willfully indoctrinating people to their position so that they can maintain power. Yes, but that's not Pisco. That's not Destiny. They're not the people at the top. That's not the random guy you're arguing with on Twitter. That's not David Pakman. That's not Kyle Kulinski. That's not Scott Pelley at fucking 60 Minutes. That's not Don Lemon. They ain't the guys at the top with the power. So when we're talking about that group, Don Lemon hates white people. He fucking hates them. He thinks they're racist. Yeah. He does. It's not an act. It's not that, like, really Don Lemon's like, oh, no. I know that this is all bullshit. But no, there are things that are like that. They knew the Russia stuff was bullshit. I remember seeing Van Jones ask about it in the street. That they knew. But they believe these narratives that are
Well, the court packing thing is another thing to kind of bolster my argument. The other night, I think your idea is brilliant. Let's push against the court packing, but at the same time, Trump should try to court pack, because then the left is kind of caught in a catch-22. What do? We want to pack the court, but then we also don't want Trump to do it, which I think is a brilliant tactic, by the way. Brilliant. I think that's very smart. But that also goes with what I'm saying. There are certain things for sure that are in their doctrine that they firmly believe as individuals. Don Lemon is definitely a racist, for sure. Absolutely. And a lot of these people are against whites. But if, let's say, all black people start voting Republican, and then let's say 70% of whites start voting Democrat, what you will start to see is these ultra leftists, they're communists. All they care about is making America communist in this country. That's all they care about. So if they start seeing another block of people that are going to more their side, they're going to still use the victim mentality, but they're going to now cater it towards the other side, the opposite side that they've been doing.
That is true. But I guess, yes, like, I agree. I'm not saying that Democrats were born saying, I think white people are systemically racist. I think conservatives are evil. I'm not saying that. Of course, there were people that conditioned them, and that's when we talk about, like, the taking over of academic institutions and cultural institutions, etc. Yes, I agree with that. However, what I'm saying is you can't have this much enthusiasm for this shit without an authentic belief by these people that they are morally virtuous and their opponents are evil. It is not just them pretending. We don't really believe that. We know that we're no better than you. We just want power. We have slightly better ideas. So we'll pretend to be morally virtuous and pretend to hate you. You need true believers. And most of the people in the comment, I think as you go up the food chain, like when you go from, random commentator on X to like Chuck Schumer, obviously the power dynamic shifts. There's more of a whatever, we'll say whatever the fuck we can for power. But they have those people in positions of power. There's not like a big club meeting where they're like, look, we're all going to bullshit about this. None of us really believe it, right? Our millions of voters. No, they really believe it.
My point isn't that they have this huge club meeting. No, you got to understand, you're taking your mindset, Rob, as an individualist because you're a conservative, okay? That is not the same mindset or mind structure, if you will, of a leftist. A leftist is a collectivist. They go with the herd. You are, let's say, you're a leopard, okay? You hunt on your own. You do your own thing. You want to be left alone. The leftists are buffalo. They go in unison. Okay. And there's always that one buffalo that leads the herd. Okay. I don't know if it's called a herd, but you get the reference. And so if the lead buffalo determines that it's more advantageous to go left versus right, meaning it's more advantageous politically to now cater to, let's say, the crowd that supports more white-centric things than black-centric things, they're going to go that route. And a good example of it is the Hispanic vote. Now that the Hispanic vote is tending towards kind of purplish red, are we talking about Hispanic or Latinx anymore? Have we heard it in the last, like, let's say 2 years? No, we haven't, because now the left has determined, okay, they're lost. We lost them. We lost the American Hispanic vote. They're trending the wrong way. So now we got to find new one. Now we have to influx more immigrants, and they don't care what color they are, as long as they vote Democrat, as long as they vote leftist. And we're going to convince our lemmings that these are now the real victims. You see what I'm saying?
No, I agree, and that is my point. Where my disagreement with Lobster was Lobster saying they don't believe it. They're not lemmings. They're in on it. They're also in with Chuck Schumer. They're in on it with George Soros, all in on the grift. None of us really, or the vast majority of us, don't believe this shit. We're just pretending to believe it to obtain power. That is not the case. They do believe it. Yes, they could be convinced otherwise. You could convince these people in very short order. Within, Bresmanov talked about it. Within 2 generations of indoctrinating your children, they could make any enemy they want. If they wanted to, they could make Asian Americans the big enemy. There could be just as much vitriol against Asian Americans as there are against white people or Jewish people in 2 generations if they wanted. And why? Well, maybe they're more conservative, so fuck them. But they would believe it. Those people screaming that they hate Asians, the Asians are racist, would believe that. They absolutely would. So that's the other point that I'm making. And like, I do agree that it's worth pointing out it's because there was an intentional indoctrination to do this. That's certainly true. There's an intentional indoctrination to hyper-focus on the sins of these Western nations, right, in order to justify like the mass displacements of the people that were in those countries, because people that were globalist and left-wingers saw this as a big impediment to their ultimate agenda, which is sort of them having a one world government that's like globalist controlled. I'm not saying one world government in like this crazy fucking conspiracy. Like, I mean, like quite literally, they want like a one economic zone with one set of rules. That's what they want. They don't want to have to deal with 50 different countries with 50 different laws requiring their economics. And they could actually make an argument as to why maybe this would be better for humanity. I vehemently disagree with them, but they could. They're just willing to get there through unscrupulous means. They're just like, fuck you. We're going to displace. They think this is why I.
Well, that's just the nature of power, Rob. That's just the nature. And here's the thing. That is exactly. It sounds bad, but that's the mentality we need to start having. If we want to protect our individual rights, we need to fight this as a war because the other side does. And that's the unfortunate fact. And to go to another point, so here's where so another example is Jews. Jews were the left's darling, and not only because they are a victim group, right? They inherently have a victim mentality. But also that they typically are wealthier, so they can raise money. But then they started getting money from, let's say, other Middle Eastern countries, and a lot more than they were getting from Jews in this country. So now they're seeing a more politic, and plus the fact that there's now becoming more of an influx of foot soldiers, if you will, within that region. So in this country. So now they're revitalizing, and not to mention, I forgot to mention this, that there's always been a long-standing internationally alliance between the communists and the Islamists. So now that in this country, in the U.S., now that they're going back to that old alliance because now it's more advantageous for them to do so.
No, I totally agree. I gotta move on. I'm supposed to be done 2 minutes ago. But no,
Sorry about
no. I totally agree. I do, right? I think that this is obviously the case. That they understand they can shift alliance. One of the ones I talk about all the time is like white gay men. Like basically the argument's like, shut your mouth. You're part of the coalition now. Now we don't give a shit. Shut your mouth. Or like when the trans issue with feminists, shut up. We don't care that you wanted spaces for yourself. Shut up. We already got you. Now just shut up and be a member of the coalition. There's a new group that we need to focus on,
Right.
etc. Right? So
Right.
I agree. They manipulate these stuff. The only point I was making with Lobster is, and if you take it back, fully draw it to the meta, when I'm talking to someone like Bisco, I do think that there is parts where he knows he's being disingenuous, but I also think there are parts where he's a true believer. I think that if you talk to Bisco, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong just about this little point, he truly thinks that Donald Trump's one of the most evil people ever, and that we must do damn near everything to stop him. I believe he believes that. I think he does. And it's irrational.
I think he's been indoctrinated too. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and so I think it's irrational.
But I think he could be easily, if we get someone else who's even more, let's say, I don't know who, but let's say, you know, a more hardcore, like DeSantis. I think DeSantis would be more hardcore conservative than Trump. They're going to then say, oh, we miss Trump.
Yeah, no, they will. They will. That's the ironic part. But what I'm saying is these people are true believers in the moment. They're true believers, and it's predictable to see. As soon as Trump's gone, it's going to be DeSantis, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio. The narrative will immediately shift to this. These gentlemen are even worse because they have all the horrible, racist, evil impulses of Trump, but with a nice veneer on it. They're not as ill-spoken, and so they hide their evilness. Yep,
Mhm.
and they'll believe it.
Yep.
Many of them will believe it. Does Chuck Schumer believe that? No.
No.
Does Nancy Pelosi believe that? No. But so much of their audience and their base, they do believe that. They really, truly do. And I think that, like, again, it hardly matters. It hardly matters in the grand scheme of things of like, well, what do we specifically do about it? But I do think it's worth people knowing. It's not that you're talking to these people and that they're seriously like, because I think Trump's like that. Trump's the type of dude that'll be like, you know, I think Ted Cruz's dad was the fucking Zodiac. And I think his wife's not attractive. And then as soon as the election's over, he's like, hey, good game, bro. What's up, man? You want to come out for dinner? That is Trump.
Yes.
These people aren't like that. It's not like they're going to win and be like, cool, man. Nah, we were just shitting you. We were just being hyperbolic to win that election. But it's all cool now. We'll see you in 2 years. It ain't that. Like, they mean to fucking do the shit they're talking about. You know, so I do think it's worth pointing that out. But Zach, I gotta let you go.
All right. Well, thank you for taking my call.
It's always,
have a good
always
one.
A pleasure. I have 3 callers on the line. I do not think I'll be able to get to you today, and I do apologize to that. I do have to go. I have to take my son somewhere. I thought that I had today off and could go until at least 3, but it looks like that's not the case. So Premonition, Heavy, and Mr. I will write your names down. I will be doing a call-in show Thursday, and I will put you at the top of the queue as soon as you call in. I am so sorry. I really am. To the audience, if you like this content here as we do the outro, GG, thanks for the $5. Says, need more day show support. Thank you. If you like this content, please consider sending in a super chat to try to get us at least near that goal. It really is like, you know, I have a limited amount of time. This is my job. I'm always going to stream. Well, I can't say always, but even if I made $0, I'll still stream. But I'll probably put my time into doing evening shows and stuff like that. So consider if this is the type of show you like, you know, consider throwing in a few dollars. Would really appreciate it. No. All right. We're going to raid. Let's see. My man Jake Rattlesnake's on. So let's rate him over. Zach Gilpy, thanks for the $10. It's good talk. Let's get the super sync, guys. Thank you, man. Sorry again, Heavy Premonition and Mr. I saw. I do apologize and thank you for all understanding. I really do. I do appreciate all three of you. So, all right, we're rating the great Jake Rattlesnake. Yes, make fun of him. Jake, what do you think about the incoming raid? Any comments? Yes. All right. I'll see you guys either at the extravaganza today or tonight. Night shift's going to make fun of you guys brutally on day shift. Trust me. They're going to give you the business, but they also give me the business. So, okay, you guys are the best. Thank you so much. I will talk to you all later this evening. As always, have a good one.